Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Paranormal M channel. You know what? I genuinely love what I do. No matter how exhausting my day's been, the moment I sit down to get ready and share these paranormal stories with you, I can't help but feel excited and happy. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. And by the way, thank you so much for sending in your own paranormal experiences. Now, let's dive into today's stories. Okay, so this is genuinely the only time in my life I've ever felt like I personally brushed up against something spiritual. And I'm saying that as someone who's usually pretty skeptical. When I was a kid, I'd spend a couple weeks every summer with my grandma, Marlene. She lived out of state in this tiny, sleepy town in eastern Oklahoma, one of those places where everything feels a little frozen in time. A few miles from her house lived her best friend, Dolores. That summer, by pure luck, Dolores's grandkids were visiting at the exact same time I was. 4 girls, all around my age. We were about 12, maybe 13, and we basically glued ourselves together for days. We played cards, wandered around outside, did that whole summer kid thing where time feels endless. One afternoon, they invited me over to Dolores's house. I need you to picture this place. Like a lot of homes in that town, it was old, late 1800s old. But it wasn't just old. It was huge, kind of elegant, almost gothic in a way, with tall ceilings and dark wood and that faint, old house smell that's half dust, half history. I'd never been inside before, and I didn't know anything about it other than, this is Dolores's house. So we're downstairs for hours, playing cards and laughing and drinking way too many sodas. At some point, I finally go, "Okay, where's the bathroom?" One of the girls points casually and says, "Upstairs, first door on your right." Easy. Normal. I walked across to the staircase on the far side of the house. The stairs went up, hit a little landing, then turned back the other direction. A full half turn. And that turn is important, because the second you make it, you can't see downstairs anymore. It's like you step into a different pocket of the house. And I swear to you, the exact second I made that turn, something in my body flipped. It was like panic hit me out of nowhere. Not a thought, not a sound, not a shadow, nothing I could point to. Just this sudden, crushing dread. My chest felt heavy, like someone had dropped a weight right on top of it. I actually remember thinking, nope, forget it. I'll just go back down. I don't even have to pee that bad. Except, I did. I really did. So I forced myself to keep going, even though every instinct in me was screaming to turn around. Upstairs was bright, afternoon light pouring in through the windows, so logically it should have felt totally fine. But it didn't. It felt like the middle of the night. Like that creepy, narrow hallway feeling you get when you're alone after watching a scary movie and you're pretending you're not scared. The hallway stretched out in front of me, and there were doors along it. The bathroom was supposed to be the first door on my right, but I could not stop looking at the very end of the hall. There was a door on the left at the end, closed, ordinary looking, and I could not tear my eyes away from it. I don't know how to explain it. It felt like that door was pulling my attention. Like if I looked away, something would happen. There was nothing visible, nothing moving, no sound, no reason. But my whole body was locked onto that door like it was a threat. I rushed into the bathroom, did what I had to do in record time, and I practically ran back to the stairs. And here's the wild part. Once I got back down and could see the downstairs again, it was like someone released a pressure valve. Instant relief. My chest loosened. My breathing went back to normal. The dread disappeared so fast it made me feel almost ridiculous, like, what was that? And then I was right back at the table laughing with everyone like nothing had happened. I expected her to laugh it off. Instead, she got very quiet and said, "Tell me exactly what you mean." So I told her. The stairs, the turn, the panic, the heavy chest, the bright hallway that felt like midnight, and how I couldn't stop staring at that door at the end. By the time I finished, my grandma looked completely stunned, like hand over mouth stunned. And then she hesitated, like she was debating whether she should even say anything. But she could tell I'd noticed her reaction, and finally she said, "Honey, you need to know something about that house." She told me that Dolores's family moved into it back in the 1950s, when Dolores was just a little girl. The house had been empty for years and was in rough shape, so they had to renovate a lot. During the planning, someone realized the upstairs layout didn't make sense. There were too many windows for the number of rooms, like there was a space missing. They traced it and figured there should have been an old-style storage closet, what people used to call a trunk room, completely sealed behind a wall. So they opened it, and inside, they found the remains of a teenage girl. Not just bones, evidence she'd been left there. Her wrists had been restrained to the wall. There were still scraps, hair, pieces of fabric, enough to make it horrifyingly real. Like it wasn't ancient history. Like it had been waiting in the dark for someone to find it. And Dolores's family somehow stayed. They finished the renovations. They turned that space back into storage again. And then my grandmother said, very softly, "That sealed room is at the end of the upstairs hall, behind the last door on the left." The same door I couldn't stop staring at. I remember just sitting there in the car, feeling cold all over. Because I hadn't been told anything. No one hinted. No one joked about it. I walked into that house totally normal, spent hours having fun, and then, at that turn in the stairs, it was like I walked into someone else's pain. It's been years since that happened, and I still can't explain it in a neat, rational way. I don't go around hunting ghosts. I don't usually sense things, but I can't deny what my body did up there, or how focused I was on that door without knowing why. And honestly, I think for a few seconds, I felt what that girl must have felt. Fear, desperation, that trapped, hopeless panic. Like the house remembered. Like the hallway remembered. Like that door was still holding something that didn't want to be forgotten. So, I moved into this new place a few months ago, and it's one of those gorgeous old Victorian houses. High ceilings, ornate trim, the kind of wooden details you don't see anymore. It's been split into a few units now, but the bones of it are still there, and honestly, that's what sold me. I love it, I really do. But you know how old houses are. They come with quirks. Doors that need a special touch. Floors that creak in their own little dialect, pipes that sing in the winter. I figured I was signing up for all of that. What I didn't expect was the stuff that doesn't have a good explanation. The first thing I noticed was the footsteps. My roommate, Marina, and I have bedrooms on opposite ends of the apartment, and for a while, I kept hearing this same pattern at night. It would start in the living room, slow steps crossing the hardwood, then that soft change in sound when whoever it was hit the old runner rug. Then the hardwood again, right before my door. And it wasn't just walking around. It was like someone was coming to my door on purpose. They'd stop right outside my room. Just stand there. Long enough that I'd be lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, counting my own breaths and wondering if I should call out. Then, after a few minutes, the steps would turn around and go back the way they came. At first, I did the reasonable thing. I blamed Marina. New apartment, new routines. Maybe she was grabbing water. Maybe she was pacing because she couldn't sleep. I didn't want to be weird about it, so I kind of laughed it off and mentioned it casually the next day. And Marina just stared at me, like genuinely confused. Then she goes, "I wasn't even here last night. I crashed at Talia's." And I remember this cold little drop in my stomach, because her face wasn't joking. It was the face of someone who knows exactly what she did the night before. And it's not the upstairs neighbor. I know what those footsteps sound like. Those are heavier and duller, and they come from above. This is different. This is in our space, in the living room, in the rug, right in front of my door. After that, it was the doors. The doors here are old school. You can't just push them shut and walk away. You have to hold the knob, turn it, pull it in, and keep doing that until you hear this particular click. Otherwise, they drift open. It's annoying, but we got used to it fast because the doors are loud and we try to be respectful, you know? We're both careful, which is why it freaked me out when we'd shut a door, really shut it, and then hours later it would be open. Not ajar either, open. Like someone had gone in and left it that way. It happened enough times that we started double-checking each other. Like, did you go in there? No. Did you? No. And it always ended in this awkward little silence where neither of us wanted to be the first person to say, "Okay, so what the hell is happening?" And I kept trying to stay rational. I kept telling myself, it's settling. It's warped frames. It's airflow. It's normal old house nonsense. I wanted so badly for that to be true. But then, things started getting thrown. And listen, when something gets thrown, even once, your brain stops being able to casually explain things away. Because a door opened can be a draft. Footsteps can be imagination when you're half asleep. But an object flew is different. It's a line. The first time was in Marina's room. She told me she woke up in the middle of the night because she heard breathing, like someone was right there. Close enough that it wasn't just the house settling or a noise outside. Close enough that she could tell it was a person's breath. She said for a second she just froze, like her brain couldn't process the order of events. Breathing, impact, silence. Then she grabbed her phone, tried to turn on the flashlight, and it wouldn't work. She kept tapping it, swiping, trying again. Nothing. The screen would light up, but the flashlight just refused. And here's the part that makes my skin crawl. She didn't get it to turn on until she left the room. She stepped out into the kitchen, tried again, and the flashlight came on immediately, like it was waiting for her to cross the doorway. The second time was smaller, but somehow even worse, because it happened while I was awake and moving around. I walked into Marina's room during the day to grab something. She was right behind me, and this tiny little trinket she keeps on the back edge of her dresser, pressed up near the wall, suddenly skittered and launched off like it had been flicked hard. It didn't fall straight down. It flew out toward me. Not like a gentle slide either, like it had intent. After that, we started noticing other things we'd been trying to ignore. The whispering, soft and half-formed, like you're almost catching words but not quite. Electronics doing that weird thing where they glitch and restart for no reason, or refuse to work in one room but act perfectly normal somewhere else. The general sense of something happening in the background of the apartment. And it's gotten to the point where my friends don't want to stay over. I've got one friend, Jonah, who will come by, but he refuses to sleep anywhere except in my room. And even then, he insists we cram into my tiny bed like we're kids at a sleepover, because he says he can't stand the feeling of being alone in the living room at night. The weirdest part is, Marina and I don't get a bad vibe from the place. Not like it feels evil or heavy or like something's trying to hurt us all the time. It's more like the apartment has moods, like it's curious one minute and restless the next. But it's starting to become really hard to keep shrugging things off as just an old house. So now I'm stuck in this space between wanting proof and being terrified of getting it. Like, part of me wants to set up a camera, or put baby powder by the doorways, or tape a little piece of paper to the latch and see if it moves. Something. Anything to make it concrete. And part of me is like, what if we do catch something? What if we confirm it? Because right now it's scary, but it's still maybe. And I don't know if I'm ready for it to be definitely. Hey, so I've had a handful of weird encounters in my life. Things that, for a long time, I tried to brush off as a kid's imagination or my brain playing tricks on me when I was scared. And honestly, maybe that's still all they were. But a few of them stuck so hard in my memory that I can't help but wonder. When I was little, I was so easy to spook. My mom loved watching those paranormal investigation shows, the kind where someone hears a creak and suddenly the whole crew is whispering and acting like the house is about to swallow them whole. And of course, tiny me is sitting there absorbing all of that like it's a documentary. So, yeah, dark rooms, strange noises, anything unfamiliar at night. I was a mess. The first moment I really can't explain happened when I woke up in the middle of the night and saw who I thought was my grandma. Except it wasn't quite right. Her name was Nora, and she was still alive at the time, so you'd think seeing her wouldn't be scary. But my room had this strange bluish glow, like the moon was pouring straight through the walls. And there she was, right there near my bed, staring at me like she hadn't expected me to wake up. What made my stomach drop was how off she looked. Her eyes widened a little when she noticed I was awake, and I couldn't see her legs properly, like the bottom half of her just wasn't there. And she had those big hair curlers in, the kind you'd expect someone to wear to bed. I froze, like the kind of frozen where you forget how to breathe. And then she turned around, quietly, casually, and walked out of my room. I waited for what felt like forever, then bolted to my parents' room and told them I'd seen something, that I'd seen her, but it didn't feel like her. My dad got up and checked the house, and nothing. No footsteps, no light switches, no, "Oh, it was just Nora checking on you." Nothing like that. The next morning, I went straight to my grandma and my mom in the living room, trying to sound brave but probably looking pale. And Nora smiled and said, real matter of fact, "Oh, that was me. I came in to make sure you were covered. Mosquitoes were bad last night." And I wanted to accept that so badly. I really did. But here's the thing. That morning, her hair was normal. Flat, brushed, no curlers, no sign she'd slept in anything. And my grandma, she hated sleeping with rollers. I know because she complained about stuff like that constantly. So I nodded and pretended it made sense. But that little detail has never left me. The second one happened years later, when I was older, maybe around 15 or 16. My dad, my younger brother Kieran, and I used to go walking out in this scrubby woodland area, not too far from where we were staying. It wasn't deep forest or anything, but it had that dry, quiet feeling. Tall grass, scattered trees, dusty tracks. The kind of place where sound travels weird. One day, I decided I wanted to walk ahead and cut through the trees to meet the road again. My dad pointed and told me to head in one direction, and I'd find the dirt road that loops back toward the gate. And I did. I actually found it pretty quickly, and I was ridiculously proud of myself. I started down the road toward the gate like, look at me, I know exactly where I am. Then I rounded a bend and saw it. This huge black dog, way down the road, just standing there sideways across it. And it wasn't moving. It was just staring at me. I slowed down without even meaning to, like my body knew before my mind caught up. For a few seconds, I actually kept walking, like maybe if I acted normal, it would act normal too. But it didn't even shift its weight. No sniffing, no head tilt, nothing. Just that fixed, steady stare. The panic hit hard and fast. I turned around and started walking quickly, then basically jogging back the way I came. And I kept looking over my shoulder, and every time I did, it was still there. Still not moving. Still watching. When I reached the bend again, I nearly collided with my dad and Kieran. I must have sounded ridiculous, out of breath, wide-eyed, telling them there was a massive dog on the road ahead. So we all go back together, turn the corner, and it's gone. No sound of it running off, no rustling in the brush. And the part that really messed with me, there were no paw prints. The dirt was soft enough that we should have seen something, but there was nothing, like it had never been there at all. And even now, if there had been prints, I would have shrugged it off as a stray dog or some big farm animal that got loose. But the blankness of it, the no trace part, keeps it filed in that mental drawer labeled, I don't know what that was. And then the last one. This one happened in high school, and it was my first experience with sleep paralysis. I woke up in the middle of the night on my side, and I remember immediately seeing movement reflected in the mirror across my room, like a shadow slipping past too quickly to focus on. My heart jumped, and then it's like my brain just cut out for a second. Next thing I knew, I was on my back. That same cold, bluish moonlight feel was back, filling the room like a filter. And at the corner of my bed stood a woman-shaped shadow, tall, still, with messy hair that puffed out around her head. Her eyes were bright white, like two small lights. I tried to talk. I tried to ask who she was, but nothing came out. No sound, no whisper, nothing. And weirdly, I wasn't even terrified of her at first. What truly freaked me out was realizing I couldn't move. I couldn't even shift my fingers. My whole body was locked, like I was pinned in place. I tried to yell, and that's when it happened again. Another blackout, like someone snapping off a switch. Then I woke up, back on my side, breathing like I'd run a race. Sweating, heart pounding, trying to convince myself I was fine. And the strangest part? The next day I wasn't traumatized. I was almost excited. Like my brain was going, that was insane. Did you feel that? I told my friend about it like it was some wild story from a movie. And it never happened again after that. So yeah, that's the big three. There are smaller moments I could mention, little things that are easy to dismiss, but those ones stayed vivid. I'm not asking anyone to believe me, honestly. Skepticism makes sense. I just know what I remember and how it felt. And I'm curious, have you ever had anything like that happen? Even just one moment you still can't explain? I genuinely love hearing other people's stories because it helps me feel a little less alone with mine. So, I've got to tell you about something that's been messing with my head in the most quiet, unsettling way. My boyfriend, well, I'll call him Eli, has had weird, unexplainable experiences since he was a kid. Not the vague, I felt a vibe kind of thing. I mean clear stuff. He's talked about hearing voices like someone was standing right beside him, hearing breathing in rooms where he was completely alone, even catching the smell of things that made no sense, like cigarette smoke or a very specific floral perfume, in his childhood home where nobody smoked and nobody wore anything like that. And it didn't stop there. He's seen what he swears were full-on apparitions, like not shadows, not corner-of-your-eye tricks, actual figures. He's also described that creepy feeling of being touched when no one was near him, the kind of stories where you can't tell if you want to ask more questions or cover your ears. So yeah, if anyone has some kind of connection to the spiritual side of things, it's him. Me? I'm the opposite. I'm the person who's lived my whole life without a single paranormal story. No footsteps, no voices, no spooky silhouettes. Even in old houses, even alone at night, nothing. I've always been able to shrug off ghost stories like, sure, okay. But here's the part that gets me. When Eli is at my place, things happen. And it's not just him saying, "Did you hear that?" It's both of us hearing it, seeing it, feeling it. And I don't have an explanation that satisfies me. A couple nights ago, we ate dinner and left the dishes on the kitchen counter. The living room is a separate room. But the kitchen door was open, so we were chatting like normal, half watching something, half just talking. And then, we both just stopped mid-sentence, because from the kitchen, we heard this sound, so specific that my stomach dropped before my brain even caught up. It sounded exactly like a fork being lifted and then deliberately dropped onto a plate. Not a little clink from something settling, not a slide, a pickup and a drop, like someone did it with purpose. And we both remembered how the plates were positioned, tilted slightly, tucked in a way where nothing should have been able to just fall. No precarious balancing, no, maybe it slipped. Then, no joke, maybe 5 seconds later, it happened again. Same sound, same force, like the exact same motion repeated. Lift, drop. And here's where it gets even weirder. My cat Miso was lying near the kitchen doorway. Miso is ancient, honestly. He's the kind of old cat who barely blinks at thunderstorms or loud noises on TV. But right after that second sound, he raised his head and just stared into the kitchen like his whole world narrowed down into that one space. Completely still, completely focused. Not scared exactly, just locked in. So, of course, Eli and I got up and walked into the kitchen expecting to see something. A fork on the floor, a plate shifted, anything. Nothing had moved. Nothing. No cutlery out of place, no plate turned, no sign that anything had been touched at all. And it wasn't the first time either. There have been other moments, like being in the same room together and hearing footsteps coming down the stairs, clear as day, when we knew nobody else was home. Or hearing footsteps in the room directly above us, followed by the subtle sound of small things being nudged around, like someone moving little objects, not crashing or throwing, just messing, like presence without a performance. And every single time, Miso has been right there with us. So it's not him wandering off and knocking things around. That's why I'm stuck, because it feels like when Eli is around, the house is more active, like something notices him, or like he unknowingly turns up the volume on whatever's normally quiet. Is it possible that some people are just more prone to this kind of thing? Like they're more sensitive, whether it's spiritual, emotional, whatever you want to call it. And that sensitivity draws experiences toward them. Because if that's true, it would explain why I've had a lifetime of nothing, and then suddenly, when Eli's sitting on my couch, my kitchen starts making decisions on its own. So, this all started at the very end of June, right as summer was settling in. I moved into my friend Dylan's house with my boyfriend Eli, and honestly, the setup seemed perfect at first. We got the whole basement to ourselves. One bedroom, this big open area with a fireplace, a bathroom, a deep storage closet, and even this weird little storage nook tucked under the stairs. It felt like we'd lucked out. But almost right away, I started feeling off. Before we moved in, Dylan told me that his ex used to live there with her 2 kids, and the downstairs bedroom had been the little girl's room. She was around 6 or 7, and he casually mentioned that she used to be up at night, talking to someone, or maybe talking to herself. And I know that might sound harmless to some people, but it planted this creepy little seed in my brain from day one. Like I walked into the basement already halfway braced for something. And then, the nightmares started. Within the first couple weeks, I began having these horrible nightmares, way worse than anything I'd ever had before living there. I do have PTSD nightmares, so I was already taking medication for them. But as this kept going, it got bad enough that my doctor added a second prescription because the first one just wasn't cutting it anymore. And the thing is, if I sleep downstairs, it's almost guaranteed I'll have a nightmare. Almost every time. But if I fall asleep upstairs on Dylan's couch, totally normal sleep. No nightmares, not even once. That difference messes with me, because it makes it feel like it's not me. It feels like it's the space. One of the scariest ones happened recently, just a couple days ago. In the dream, someone told me, very clearly, that I'd been put under a spell. And I remember that phrase because it felt so specific and so calm, like they were stating a fact. I woke up immediately after that, heart pounding, and there was a wasp down there in the basement. And I know how that sounds, like, okay, a wasp is just a wasp, but I'm telling you, I have no idea how it got in. Doors were shut, windows were shut. It was just there, like it had been dropped into the room. And the nightmares keep escalating, darker, more vivid, more intense, like something is building momentum. There was one early on that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. I'd had a nightmare so bad that I got out of bed and went upstairs because I didn't want to be down there anymore. I figured I'd sleep on the couch where it felt safer. So I lay down, trying to calm myself, and I had my hair up in a ponytail. The ponytail was hanging over the arm of the couch, and I swear to you, it felt like something tugged my hair. Not like it snagged on fabric, not like I rolled onto it. It felt like an actual pull, like fingers hooking it and giving it a little yank. I froze. I didn't want to move. I didn't even want to breathe too loud. And that's not even the only thing. I'm a student, so I'm home a lot more than the guys are. Eli works, and Dylan works too. Actually, they work together. So there are a lot of days where I'm alone in the house. And when I'm alone, I keep hearing things that make it seem like they're home. The sound I hear most is Dylan's cough. He smokes, and it's this really distinct throat-clearing cough he does. I'll hear that exact cough, and then I'll hear a lighter flick, like someone's lighting up. Sometimes I hear his laugh from upstairs, like he's reacting to something. And here's the part that really gets under my ribs. Sometimes it even sounds like music is playing upstairs. Not super loud, but enough that my brain goes, someone's up there. Except, no one is. And now I'm at this point where I don't know what's happening. I don't know if it's stress, the basement messing with my sleep, old house noises, my brain being on high alert, or something I can't explain. I just know I don't feel fully at ease down there anymore. And I guess what I'm really asking is, what would you think if you were in my shoes? What would you do? Okay, so let me just tell you what's been going on, because I still get that weird, tight feeling in my chest when I think about it. My partner, Eli, and I are moving into this old house he grew up in. He lived there for years with his grandma, Nana Joe. It's not some dreamy, fresh start situation either. It's more like, this is what we can afford right now, so we're making it work. And I've been trying to do the normal moving in stuff, you know? Cleaning out cabinets, wiping down walls, sorting through old boxes. But almost right away, the house started doing these little off things. Not like a horror movie jump scare every 5 seconds, just enough to make you pause and go, wait, did that really just happen? The first big thing was this old clock. It was hanging on the wall, one of those plain, kind of dated clocks that clearly belonged to someone's routine for a long time. Eli told me it hadn't worked in forever, like it had been broken for years. The minute hand was bent and there were no batteries in it. None. So I take it down on a Friday afternoon while I'm cleaning. I set it on a table in the hallway and I go to the bathroom. And I'm telling you, while I'm in there, I start hearing ticking. Not like maybe the pipes ticking, like a clock. A steady, clear tick, tick, tick coming from the hallway. I came out and just stood there for a second, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. And then Eli walks in holding the clock, eyes wide, like, "Babe, are you messing with me?" Because the clock is working. The second hand is moving. It's clicking and ticking like it's been alive the whole time. And I'm like, Eli, there are no batteries in that. We checked. We opened it. Nothing. Empty. Now, here's the part that makes it complicated. Nana Joe passed away in this house a few years back. Eli's always talked about her like she was a real anchor in his life. Sweet, tough, the kind of woman who made you feel safe even when she didn't say much. So his first reaction wasn't fear. He actually got kind of soft about it, like he wanted it to mean something comforting. Since we've been there more, he's been walking through the house talking to her out loud sometimes. Just little things, like, "We're fixing it up, Nana," or "Hope you like what we're doing with the kitchen." And I'll be honest, some parts of the house feel totally normal. But there are a few spots where the air feels heavier, like the vibe changes when you step into them. Not freezing cold dramatic, just tense. Like you're not alone, even when you are. And that's where my mind keeps going. What if it's not her? Because Eli told me something from when he was a teenager, something nobody in his family knows, because they're intensely religious, and it would not go over well. When he was around 16, he and a couple cousins were sitting on the front porch messing around, being dumb teenagers. They were playing Truth or Dare, and they dared him to try some ritual they found online, some prove you're not scared kind of thing. And he did it. He says later that night he looked up and saw this tall, dark figure in his bedroom window, just standing there, watching him. No face he could explain, just the shape of something that didn't feel human. What makes it worse is he says it didn't stop. Even after that night, even after weeks and months passed, he'd catch glimpses of the same tall figure sometimes, like it would be standing down the road near the edge of the yard, facing the house. Like it was waiting, like it knew where he lived. He said he felt something climbing up his legs, slowly, like pressure and weight moving higher and higher, and he couldn't move a muscle. Then he felt it sit on his chest, heavy enough that he couldn't breathe right, like his lungs just couldn't expand. And he said something covered his face, like a hand or a shadow, and he heard a voice, right up close, telling him, "It's okay, it'll be over soon." And he woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, like he'd been running. He still talks about it like it's burned into him. So now fast forward almost a decade. We're moving back into that house. And the room where he says the worst of it happened, that's going to be our little girl's room. Our daughter, Lila, is 6. She's tiny. She's bright and sweet, and she still believes the world is mostly good. And the idea of her sleeping in the same space where he saw that figure makes my stomach twist. And then, like it needed to get even weirder, Eli's Uncle Ray lives in a camper right outside the house. He told me recently that he's been seeing a tall, dark figure too, from outside, near the road. And Ray has no clue about what happened to Eli when he was 16. None. We never told him. There are also people nearby who swear they've seen this strange blue haze out around the area sometimes. Like smoke, but not like any normal smoke. I don't know if that's related, or if it's just small-town stories stacking on top of each other, but it's one more thing that makes everything feel unsettled. So that's where I'm at. I'm trying to clean and unpack and make a home, but in the back of my mind I keep thinking, what if something latched on back then? What if it's still here? And if Nana Joe really is around in some gentle way, I don't want to push her out. I don't want to clear the house and accidentally shove away the only presence that might actually be loving. I just want whatever's dark, whatever's pretending, if that's what it is, to be gone. And more than anything, I want every kind of protection I can get around my daughter, and around all of us, because I can deal with being creeped out. But I can't deal with the idea of something watching my kid from the dark. You know how there are some childhood memories that feel kind of blurry? Like you're not sure if you really remember them, or if you've just heard the story enough times that you think you do. This one isn't like that for me. This one is sharp. Like it's been sitting in the back of my mind all these years, untouched. So, for a little context, our house back then was basically split into two separate worlds. There was an upstairs and a downstairs, and they weren't connected inside. No staircase, no hallway linking them, nothing. If you were upstairs, you were upstairs. If you were downstairs, you were downstairs. Upstairs, we had other family living too, and there was one relative I was really close with, my great-uncle, Milo. He passed away when I was still little. And this is important because what happened not long before he died. I remember the adults later mentioning that it was within a month or so of his passing. The house was tiny, so sleep arrangements were always a little chaotic. Kids would crash on the couch or on blankets on the floor in the kitchen, wherever we fit. Adults got the bedrooms. But one night, the adults decided to switch things up for a few days. They set me and my older sister, her name's Lena, up in my grandma and grandpa's room. And I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't exactly the kind of kid who just rolled over and went to sleep. It was the middle of the night, and I couldn't sleep at all. I didn't have a phone, obviously. I was preschool age. So I did what any bored little kid would do. I got curious. Lena had her makeup bag with her, and normally she guarded it like it was treasure. She was so strict about it. But that night, she let me mess with it. Looking back, I'm pretty sure it's because she was lying on the bed talking on her phone, whispering to her boyfriend. And if I was busy pretending to be a makeup artist, I wouldn't bother her. So I'm sitting on the floor near the bedroom door, right where the little nightlight hit the wall. That light mattered because it was the only thing making the room feel safe. Everything else was shadows. And I'm doing the whole dramatic thing, twisting open a lipstick, pretending to apply it without actually touching my lips, like I'm some kind of fancy grown-up. Then, the door moved. Not like a tiny creak. It actually pushed inward. And because I was sitting right in front of it, kind of blocking it, it nudged me too. Just a little, but enough that I felt it. My first thought wasn't fear. My first thought was, oh, Grandma's checking on us. Because she always did that. She always came in to make sure we were tucked in right, blankets on, everything okay. So I get this little happy rush, and I lean forward and peek my head through the opening, expecting to see her silhouette, or her face, or someone. But there was nobody. Just pitch black darkness on the other side. Like the kind of darkness that feels heavy. Not just the lights are off, but there is nothing there. My smile vanished so fast. I pulled my head back in, shut the door, and turned to look at Lena. And she looked at me, like she'd felt something too. She goes, "Who was that?" And I remember saying, really quietly, "There's no one." And she immediately went, "What do you mean, no one?" She slid off the bed and came toward the door like she was going to prove me wrong. Like, obviously it was Grandma or Grandpa. But when she tried to open it, it wouldn't open. It was like something was holding it from the other side. Or like it was locked, but it wasn't supposed to be. We weren't the type of family to lock bedroom doors like that. She tugged again, harder. Nothing. And that's when the fear finally hit me. Because now it wasn't just, the door moved. Now it was, the door moved and we can't open it. And Lena, she got scared too. I could see it. But she did that older sibling thing where she tried to hide it because my panic was getting worse. She told me, okay, let's just go to sleep. It's fine. Then she put music on her phone, low, like she was trying to fill the room with something normal, something human. And she said, it was probably Grandma. Even though we both knew that didn't really explain anything. The next morning we asked around. We asked Grandma, we asked Grandpa, we asked anyone who might have been awake. Everyone said no. Nobody had been at the door. My grandmother shrugged and said, "Probably the wind." And that's where the adults left it. Wind. End of story. But it wasn't the end for me. Years later, when Lena and I were older, we talked about it again. I asked her what she remembered, because I needed to know if I had imagined any part of it. And Lena told me something that made my stomach drop all over again. She said that while I was on the floor playing, she was lying on the bed still on the phone. She was watching me on and off while talking, not really paying full attention, just keeping an eye on me like sisters do. And she said, right as her call was about to end, she saw the doorknob twist. Like, actually twist. And the door opened slightly. She watched me poke my head out and just freeze there for a few seconds, not saying a word. Then I shut the door and turned to look at her. So from her point of view, it looked like I saw someone. That's why she asked, "Who was that?" Then when I told her, "No one," she thought I was messing with her. But when she went to check, she said the door felt like it was locked from the outside. And she admitted something else too. She said she was scared. Really scared. But when she saw me falling apart, she forced herself to act calm, because she knew if she panicked, it would make it worse. So she played music, told me it was Grandma, made it feel normal. And the truth is, we both agreed, years later, that it didn't feel like wind. Not the way it moved, not the way it stopped us from opening the door. After that night, we avoided that room. Like, we didn't even joke about it. We just didn't go in there. Not unless we had to. And even then, not for long. And I know it sounds small. It's just a doorknob, a door, a few seconds in the dark. But when you're little, when you're sitting in a quiet room with only a nightlight, and a door opens by itself, and the hallway outside is empty, it doesn't feel small. It feels like something noticed you. Okay, I'm going to try to tell this as clearly as I can, because even now, it feels like trying to describe a color I can't quite name. So, I was sitting there with my partner, Evan, just talking, like normal, everyday talking. We'd gotten onto this whole topic about mind over matter. You know, how sometimes people can make themselves sick with stress or fear, and sometimes, maybe not physically cure everything, but they can reach this deep place of acceptance. Like, peace can be its own kind of healing. And I was saying how I genuinely believe that. I do. But then I admitted something that frustrates me. When it comes to day-to-day stuff, like working out, keeping routines, doing the good-for-me things, if I don't want to, I just don't. It's like there's this invisible wall inside me. I can understand the big spiritual concepts, but I can't always apply that mind over matter muscle to normal life. I even started explaining how my brain doesn't always hold the big picture long enough to motivate me, especially with the way I'm wired, always masking, always juggling a million thoughts at once. And then, I stopped mid-sentence. Not like I forgot what I was saying, more like my whole system froze. My eyes landed on this outlet on the wall across from me, and I couldn't look away. I couldn't blink normally. I couldn't move. It was like my body was still upright, still technically awake, but I wasn't in charge anymore. And it felt like it lasted a few minutes, long enough that it started to scare me, but I couldn't even react to the fear because I was stuck inside it. And then, suddenly, I was somewhere else. It wasn't like a dream exactly. It was like my awareness slid sideways. All at once, I was watching a hospital room, like it was happening right beside me. To my right, there was a woman sitting in a chair. She looked like me, enough that my stomach dropped, like seeing a version of yourself you weren't expecting. She didn't just look like me, she felt like me, like she carried my same signature, my same weight. And to her left, in the hospital bed, was an older woman with silver white hair. She was so still. She was dying. I didn't decide that. There was no guesswork. I just knew. The certainty of it landed in me like a bell ringing. And the strange thing is, I felt like I knew them both. Not in a, oh, that's my grandma way. More like recognition without language. Like I knew the whole story, the whole context, but it existed only as feeling, like it was stored somewhere deeper than words. Then I watched the woman in the chair, who looked like me, reach over and take the dying woman's hand. And the second their hands touched, something snapped. I became the woman in the chair. And then, immediately, I became the woman in the bed. It was like my consciousness was being pulled back and forth between them, fast, like a current running through a wire. Like there was this cord connecting us all, and energy was moving from one to another. Every time I shifted, it felt like the body I had just been in became distant, like it turned into a memory. Like it didn't vanish, but it wasn't home anymore. And it wasn't scary in a horror movie way. It was sacred, heavy, calm, devastating, peaceful, like the full impact of death without panic, like grief and love and surrender braided together into one experience. Then, just as suddenly as it started, I snapped back into my body on the couch, and I couldn't hold my emotions. At first, it was like everything went numb, and I could only get out these tiny words, wow, and whoa, like that was all my mouth could manage. And then I started sobbing, like deep, uncontrollable sobbing. But it wasn't just sadness. It was like my whole nervous system was trying to process something way too big, and I got cold, like bone cold. I was on the edge of the couch, and there's a part I can't fully piece together, but I remember feeling like I fell backward, like my body just dropped. Then I shot upright so fast it didn't even feel like my muscles did it. It felt like I was yanked back into myself, like something reeled me in, like I'd been gone and then, zip, there I was, fully back. And the scariest part is that I didn't realize my body had been sitting there, waiting, the whole time. I wasn't aware of it being left behind until I was suddenly back inside it. Afterward, my mind started scrambling for labels. Astral projection? Another plane? Another time? Another version of reality? Because that dying woman felt like an ancestor. And she also felt like me. Like she was both separate and not separate at all. Like somehow we were the same thread in different forms. And I've believed for a long time that ancestors live in us, that we carry them, that our bodies are like libraries of people who came before. And maybe we don't get access to all that wisdom at once. Maybe we have to earn it, piece by piece. Like learning, like leveling up, like we're meant to grow into it. And the truth is, things like this have been happening to me more lately. Not always this intense, but my intuition has been louder. My experiences have been sharper. A few weeks ago, I was overwhelmed with emotion at work, and I felt this buzzing around me, like the air itself was vibrating. And my coworker, Marco, actually looked at me and said he could see something around me, like energy, like a shimmering aura. I've had dreams where I've felt that same enormous peace and that same sense of death being present, but in the dream world. This was different because I was fully awake, mid-conversation, in real life. After it happened, I couldn't warm up. The air felt strange. I felt untethered, like I wasn't fully locked into the world yet. And this thought flashed through my mind, just for a second. What if I'm dying? Like maybe that's what it feels like when you're crossing over, and I accidentally brushed up against it. And then another thought hit right behind it. What if this is a mental break? And I remember thinking, wow, I can't even describe what just happened. Because I've had experiences on substances before, times on psychedelics where reality cracked open, where love and grief and eternity all made sense at once. But this wasn't that. This was sober. This was in the middle of ordinary life. And it felt eerily similar to certain dreams I've had. Like maybe dreams aren't just dreams. Like maybe they're another door, and I'm left here holding it, trying to make sense of it, still feeling the echo of that chord, still feeling like somewhere, some version of me, is still sitting in that hospital room, holding a hand, letting go, and becoming something else. So this happened a long time ago, back when I was about 14. I had this close friend, I'll call her Lena, who lived in a duplex, and every so often I'd stay the night at her place. You know how those duplexes can be, two homes pressed together, and in their case, there was this shared basement that both sides could access. It already had that, I don't love this vibe, even in the daytime. The night I slept over, Lena told me something she probably thought was just spooky gossip, but it landed different for me. She said her older brother, Ethan, and a couple of his friends had messed around with a Ouija board down in that basement a week or two earlier. And ever since then, she'd been feeling like there was something in the house. Not like a creak in the walls feeling, more like that quiet, heavy sense of being watched when nobody's actually there. I've always been someone who believes there are things we don't fully understand. Spirits, energy, whatever you want to call it. So hearing Ouija board in the basement basically flipped a switch in my brain. Growing up, my parents always warned me not to mess with that kind of stuff. Ouija boards, Bloody Mary, anything that feels like an invitation. I wasn't trying to be the person who learned a lesson the hard way. That night, I remember lying there wide awake, staring into the dark, listening to every tiny house noise like it meant something. Eventually, I did fall asleep though, and when we woke up, everything seemed normal. Sunlight, morning energy, that little relief where you think, okay, maybe it's fine. We went into her living room to play Mario Kart on the Wii. The console wasn't hooked up, so Lena got down on the floor to plug everything in while I waited on the couch. And that's when it happened. Out of the corner of my eye, down the hall, just past the edge of the doorway, I saw movement. I turned my head, and I swear to you, there was this black figure peeking out from around the hallway corner. Not a person, not a trick of light, not a coat hanging on a door. It was wrong, like a silhouette without details. A shape that didn't have a face, but still somehow felt like it was looking at me. And the creepiest part was the way it was positioned, like it was trying to stay hidden, just barely leaning out enough to watch us. I froze. I stared at it for maybe 2 or 3 seconds, long enough for my stomach to drop, but not long enough for my brain to catch up and make sense of it. Then Lena stood up and said something like, "Okay, it's ready," and I snapped my head forward like I hadn't seen anything. I didn't tell her. I didn't want to freak her out. And honestly, I wasn't even sure what I'd seen. I told myself it was my imagination, or my nerves, or the fact that she'd planted that Ouija board story in my head the night before. So we started playing, and for a few minutes, I almost relaxed. Almost. Then maybe 10 minutes in, Lena suddenly paused the game. And when she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. She said, I see something watching us from the hallway." I felt my entire body go cold, like that instant, deep, animal fear. Because she hadn't seen my face when it happened. I hadn't reacted out loud. I hadn't said a word. So there was no way she was just echoing my anxiety. She was seeing it too. I asked her, "What does it look like?" And she described the exact same thing I'd seen. A dark, shadowy figure, not really shaped like a person, peering out from around the corner like it was trying not to be noticed. I texted my mom and asked her to pick me up. Right then, right away. I tried to act normal while we waited, but my eyes kept flicking toward that hallway, and my skin felt tight, like it knew we weren't alone. Even now, years later, I can still picture that moment so clearly it's like a snapshot in my brain. The paused game, the morning light, the hallway, and that shape leaning out just enough to watch. And I still wonder about the timing, how Lena's brother had used that Ouija board down in the basement, and how, later, Lena casually mentioned that her great-aunt had been into stuff like spell work and dark magic back in the day, like it was family lore. Maybe it was connected, maybe it wasn't. But whatever it was, it's one of the creepiest things I've ever experienced. Because it wasn't just me. Someone else saw it too. And that makes it hard to dismiss, no matter how much you want to. I'm honestly a little up, and I just need to say this out loud to someone who will listen. So, some quick context. My mom passed away a couple years back, right around this time of year. It was from ALS. That anniversary just hit, and I thought I was doing okay. But grief has this way of hanging around in your blind spots, you know? Yesterday, I was at a shopping center on the south side of town. Not all day or anything, but long enough that I felt worn down, like that tired, headachy, I need to be in my own bed kind of feeling. I was literally on my way out, keys basically in my hand, and then I got this weird, sudden pull, like, go see a movie right now. Not a gentle thought, a urge. So I checked what was starting soon, and there was a showing in 10 minutes for this thriller called Hollow Faith. I knew nothing about it, hadn't even seen a trailer. I remember thinking, please don't let this be one of those movies that randomly punches you in the heart with parent stuff. And then, of course, near the beginning, one of the characters casually mentions her dad died from Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. It's just dropped in there, and then it never really comes up again. It felt oddly specific, like the universe tapping me on the shoulder and going, hey, pay attention. And I'm sitting there in the dark like, seriously? Today? But okay, fine. Weird coincidence. I go home. Then later that night, I'm on the couch and I can't find a scrunchie I swear I just set down. I look all around me, between cushions, under a blanket, the usual places. Nothing. I finally get up, slightly annoyed, and grab another one from the bathroom. When I sit back down, the one I couldn't find is sitting neatly on a pillow on the ottoman. And I know how that sounds, but I'm telling you, I had looked right at that pillow earlier because there was this silver charm bracelet sitting on it and it caught my eye. The scrunchie was not there. And then suddenly it was, like it had been placed there on purpose. I tried to laugh it off because what else do you do? But my stomach did that little flip, that something is off feeling. Later, my partner, Eli, and I are watching TV. We've got the baby monitor next to me because our little one is asleep down the hall. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this quick flicker, like a flash of movement or light, right where there shouldn't be anything moving. My first instinct is that it's, I don't know, a reflection or a low battery indicator. So I tell myself that. I rationalize it. I don't want to spiral. And then we go to bed. Around 12:30 in the morning, while we're fully asleep, there are 3 distinct knocks on my nightstand. Not on the wall, not from somewhere across the room, on the nightstand. Like tap, 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 spaced out, deliberate. I sit straight up. Eli sits straight up. We both heard it. And I'm scanning the surface, trying to make it make sense. Like maybe something shifted or fell, but nothing's out of place. There's nothing wobbly, nothing perched on an edge, nothing that should have made that sound. It's one of those moments where your brain is sprinting ahead, desperate to label it as anything normal, but your body already decided it wasn't. Then this morning, we walk outside and one of our backyard trees has split down the middle. Half of it is just broken, tipped into the yard. We've had heavy snow lately, and the tree still had a bunch of leaves, so logically I get it. The weight was too much. But the timing of it, layered on top of everything else, it felt like punctuation. Like the last line in a paragraph I didn't want to read. So now I'm sitting here, trying to figure out what I believe. Is it just a string of coincidences? A tired brain on a grief anniversary seeing patterns everywhere. I don't feel like it's evil. I don't feel dread in a horror movie way. It's more like I feel watched. Not threatened, just noticed. Like someone is close. And the thing is, I've had one moment before, about a year ago, during a therapy session. I was doing trauma work, and in the middle of it, it was like my mom was suddenly right there with me. Clear as day, not scary, just present. And the message that landed in me was, "You're tougher than you think. Keep going." In my family, we have this word that matters a lot. Kisu. It's not a perfect translation, but it's like steady courage. The kind of grit that isn't loud. The kind that just keeps you moving through hard things, one step at a time. So I guess I'm asking, if you were me, what would you make of all this? Because I'm trying really hard not to freak myself out, but I also don't want to ignore something that might be love, reaching back through the static. So, I've just moved back to my hometown, McLaren Vale in South Australia, after being away for what feels like forever. About 8 years, give or take. And I'll be honest with you. There's one night I still replay in my head because I still can't fully wrap my brain around what we saw. And the weird part is, I'm not the only one. My old mate remembers it too, crystal clear. It was late spring. I'm pretty sure it was October 2012. I'd only just gotten my provisional license, and I was riding that wave of freedom like it was the best thing that had ever happened to me. That night, I drove to pick up my friend, Jade, for a sleepover. We were just two teenage girls, feeling grown up because I had a car and a full tank, and no one could tell us what to do for a few hours. It was around 8:30 p.m. when we were heading back toward McLaren Vale. We came off Main South Road and turned left onto Tatachilla Road. You know the stretch. It's dark, it's quiet, and once you're on it, it feels like the rest of the world just drops away. Jade was in the passenger seat, totally absorbed in her phone, thumbs flying. I was driving, half chatting, half just enjoying the night, until I saw something ahead in the headlights and my whole body went cold. I stopped the car dead in the middle of the road. I remember my voice coming out all broken as I went, "Jade, mate, what is that?" She didn't even look up at first, so I nudged her, harder than I meant to. That annoyed kind of panic, you know? Like, please look, please just look right now. She finally lifted her head, ready to give me attitude, and then her face just drained, like someone had pulled the color out of her. And she goes, barely a whisper, "Dude, what the hell is that?" Because right there, about 10 feet in front of my little hatchback, was this thing crouched low in the road. At first, my brain tried to rescue me. I remember thinking, is it a kangaroo? Has it been hit? Is it injured? Anything normal, anything explainable. But it wasn't normal. It was tall, even hunched like that. It looked around 6 foot. Skinny in a way that didn't look natural, like it had no proper muscle on it at all. Arms and legs too long. Its torso, almost human-shaped, which somehow made it worse. And its skin was this pale, bluish gray, like it didn't belong under the sun. It looked thin. Not just skinny, thin like paper. Like you could see right through it. And you basically could. In the headlights, the bones stood out under its skin like they were pressed up against the surface. I could see ribs, every single one. Like the skin didn't hide anything, just clung to it. Its head was bare, no hair, and it had these black eyes that were just wrong. Not dark brown, not they're shadowed, just black, like two holes. And here's the part that still makes my stomach twist. They didn't reflect the headlights. There was no shine, no glint, nothing human in them at all. It had no real nose either, just two holes where a nose should have been. And its mouth, it looked too wide, like it split further than it should. When it opened its mouth, it made this horrible, hissy, growling sound. And I saw teeth. Not neat rows like a dog or a person, more like jagged, sharp animal teeth. Too many of them, like it was packed full of daggers. We were frozen, fully locked in place. And the thing just stared at us. It would open its mouth, show its teeth, close it again, like it was warning us, like it was telling us, don't you move, don't you do anything stupid. And I swear to you, we sat there like that for what felt like forever, but was probably about 2 minutes. 2 minutes of neither of us breathing properly, neither of us knowing whether to reverse or gun it or just disappear. Then it shifted. It stepped, sort of sideways, toward the left edge of the road. Slow, deliberate, like it wanted us to see it move. And I remember thinking, okay, maybe it's giving us room. So I started creeping the car forward and slightly to the right, trying to go around it. I moved so slowly I could have been pushing the car with my feet. Jade practically climbed into my lap, shaking, clutching my arm like she was going to snap it off. As we got closer, it bared its teeth again, and I mean bared them, like it was furious. And when we pulled up right beside it, it turned its head and looked into the car. It looked enraged, like it hated that we were there, like we'd interrupted something. Its hands, this is another detail I can't shake. They were almost human. Long fingers, too long, and the tips were darker, like stained or bruised or something, almost black. Its feet looked humanish too, but where toes should have been, it had these claw-like shapes, like talons. And then it dropped down onto all fours. Not like an animal, like a person would, crawling. That's what made it so disturbing. It moved like it understood how humans move. It crawled off the road, into the scrub, and we watched it slide into the darkness like it was never there at all. The second it vanished, I slammed my foot down. We tore home as fast as my crappy little car would go, heart pounding in my throat, both of us talking over each other. Did you see that? What was that? No. When we got home, we were still shaking. But my parents didn't believe us. They looked at our faces and our panic and still went, "Yeah, right. You've probably been messing around. Maybe you're just imagining things." They assumed we'd smoked something. We hadn't. We didn't need drugs. The road had handed us something worse. And here's the thing. For years, I barely spoke about it. I think my brain filed it away as a nightmare just so I could sleep. Like, that didn't happen. It couldn't have. But then during COVID lockdowns in 2020, I brought it up to Jade again, kind of casually, like I was testing the water. And without hesitating, She repeated details that I hadn't even said out loud. The road, the stopping, the eyes, the teeth, the way it crawled away, word for word, like it had been sitting in her head the whole time too. After that, I started searching for other people who might have seen something similar around McLaren Vale, especially near that exact stretch of Tatachila Road. I even posted about it online a couple years back on some paranormal forum, and now I can't find the post anywhere, which is frustrating because I actually got replies. I don't know what to call what we saw. I don't know if it has a name. All I know is, it was real enough that two teenagers sat in dead silence for 2 minutes, staring at something that shouldn't exist. And 15 years later, we still remember it the same way. And every time I drive that road at night now, I slow down. Just a little. Because part of me is still waiting to see it again. So, let me tell you about something that still gives me chills, even though life has mostly gone back to normal now. This happened last year on what was supposed to be the most ordinary family trip. We were in North Carolina, right near the edge of the Blue Ridge. Pretty, peaceful, the kind of place where you expect fresh air and quiet nights. Nothing about it felt creepy. We'd been in this little rental cabin for 4 nights, and honestly, it was normal the whole time. My son, his name's Eli, has always had a big imagination. He's sensitive, dramatic in that sweet kid way, and when something scares him, he latches onto it hard. So over the years, we've heard plenty of, "I heard something" or "I saw something" stories. We usually talk him through it, help him calm down, and by morning, it's faded. But this was different. It was the last night of the trip, and it was somewhere around 1:40 a.m. when Eli shook us awake. He was 12, pale, trembling, like the kind of shaking you don't fake. And he started telling us what happened in this fast, breathy rush, like if he stopped talking it would come back. He said he was drifting off when he heard his bedroom door open. At first, he thought it was one of us checking on him. That would have made sense. Except, he said he never heard the door shut, and he never heard anyone leave. Instead, he heard footsteps, and then just silence. And then, right next to his head, he heard his water bottle on the nightstand crinkle, like someone had squeezed it. That's when he said he felt it, this weight, like a huge hand pressing down on the middle of his back, pinning him into the mattress. And the way he described it, it wasn't like a dream. It was specific, physical. He said he couldn't move, couldn't breathe, like his body just wouldn't listen to him. Finally, he could jerk himself free. He jumped up, flipped on the light, grabbed his phone, and locked himself in the little bathroom that connected to the room. And here's the part that stuck with him the most. When he looked back before shutting the door, he noticed his bedroom door was closed. So of course, we tried to rationalize it. Sleep paralysis, mountain stories, a tired brain mixing fear with half-dreams. He'd been hearing spooky stuff online. He loves that kind of thing even though it scares him, and we told ourselves maybe his mind just ran away with it. He slept on the floor in our room the rest of that night, and we did what parents do. We rubbed his back, talked softly, told him he was safe, tried to pack the fear back into a neat little box. But the thing is, it didn't stay in that cabin. When we got home to South Carolina, he started having these smaller incidents, always when he was alone. Stuff he wanted to dismiss because, honestly, it's easier for everyone if you can. He told us he'd hear the kitchen cabinets open and slam shut like someone was flicking them rapidly. Bam, 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 one after another. I started to chalk it up to settling wood, or him working himself up, until he showed me a short video where you can literally hear it happening, loud and sharp, like someone was in there messing with the doors. Then he started mentioning this weird thing with shadows. Like he'd see what looked like a dark cat dart past and hop onto this old space heater in the hallway. Except the heater would be empty, and our cats would be nowhere near him when it happened. And then, the faces. I still hate even saying it out loud. The worst day in South Carolina was when he was completely alone in the house. Everyone else was out. Work, errands, normal life. He heard knocking. Then he heard what sounded like someone stepping inside. Footsteps. The sound of movement in the entryway. He assumed it was his grandpa coming back early, so he called out. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. So Eli got up and walked into the dining room, and our dog came running to him with his tail down, ears back, that panicked, skittering kind of fear. Like, get me away from whatever that is. And the house was empty. Just Eli, just the dog, nothing. And I'll be honest with you, I hate admitting this, but at the time, we still tried to brush so much of it off. We told ourselves he was jumpy, that he'd been watching scary things, that he was spiraling, because the alternative, that something was actually interacting with him, felt too big and too terrifying to name. Then came the end of summer, when he went back to Oregon to start school again, staying with family. And that's when it changed from unsettling to menacing. He told us it started with a shadowy figure in the hallway, just standing there, like a person made out of darkness. Then came the night the bathroom faucet turned on by itself. He went to shut it off, and the bathroom door suddenly wouldn't open, like it was stuck, jammed, held. And what scared him most was that he was home with his younger brother. He told me, I thought it was going to hurt him. So he did the only thing a kid can do. He got his brother into the bedroom, stayed right beside him, and basically stood guard until the adults came home. After that, he said it became a nightly thing. Footsteps, the feeling of being watched, and that shadow shape appearing in his doorway. He told me it wouldn't go away unless he sat up, turned on the light, or prayed. And that's when he started praying. Really praying. He started going to church with his aunt and uncle, started talking about God in this way that didn't feel forced or performative. It felt like he'd found a rope to hold on to. The last incident he described is the one I can picture too clearly. He woke up, saw the shadow in his doorway again, and went straight to the bathroom across the hall because he just needed to get away from it. While he was in there, he heard something running, fast, back and forth through the house, like it was sprinting from one end to the other. And then it stopped right outside the bathroom door. He said he could see the shadow of feet under the crack. And he told me he hit this moment of exhaustion, like, I'm done being hunted in my own life. So he grabbed the handle, flung the door open, ready to confront whatever it was, and the hallway was empty. After that, it faded. It stopped. Whether it was faith, whether it was him feeling more in control, whether it was something psychological finally loosening its grip, I don't pretend I know. I only know the incidents ended, and he became lighter again. Now he talks about it more openly. He's not shaking when he tells it. He's not hiding it. And he hasn't had anything else happen in a long time. But when I look back at everything, one weird night in the mountains, then the cabinets, the shadows, the fear in the dog, and then that darker stretch out west, it's hard to dismiss it all as imagination. Any one piece, sure, but all of it together? That's why I still wonder what it was. So yeah, we're okay now. But every time I think about that first night, how ordinary everything felt until it wasn't, I get that same tight feeling in my chest. And I can't help but wonder, if something did latch onto him back then, why him? And why did it finally let go? So, this happened a few mornings ago, and I'm still not over it. I did my usual routine before heading out. Walked into my mom's room because her bathroom is where I always do my hair. She was out, like fully asleep, knocked out cold. She was facing toward the bathroom, eyes closed, breathing, normal. I leave, do my thing, and then I come back in maybe 15 or 20 minutes later to tell her I'm heading out, because she usually wakes up when I do that. So I'm like, "All right, Ma, I'm leaving." Nothing. No, no shifting. Not even that little annoyed sigh she does when she's half asleep. And when I looked again, she had turned. Now she was on her side facing the window, with her back to me, still completely still. And for a second I'm thinking, okay, she's just really tired today. But something in me felt off, like my stomach dropped for no reason. So I walk closer, and that's when I see her face. Her eyes were wide open, not blinking, not moving, just this blank, dead stare aimed up toward the ceiling, like she was awake but not there. Her body was still turned toward the window, but her eyes were locked upward like she was frozen. I said, "Mama?" Kind of soft at first, and then louder, like, "Mama!" Nothing. So I start calling her name over and over. "Mom! Mom!" And I'm getting louder because I'm honestly thinking maybe she's messing with me, like trying to scare me or something. But the longer it went on, the less it felt like a joke. I shook her shoulder, hard, and she still didn't react. Her eyes didn't flinch. Nothing changed in her face. She just stayed staring, like a statue. It felt like forever, but it was probably a minute, maybe a little more. And then finally, she blinked. Like this deep, heavy blink, almost like she was coming back from somewhere. And she goes, all confused, "What? What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I swear to you, I felt this wave of uneasiness hit me that I've never felt in my life. It was like my instincts were screaming. So I'm like, "Everybody out, now." I told my daughter, Nina, to get out of the room, and I shooed our dog, Rocky, out too. I didn't even want anyone standing in there with her. And then I stepped out myself because I just couldn't stay in that room. My heart was pounding. We went into the living room, and my mom looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. She kept trying to calm me down, like, I'm fine, I don't know anyone you're acting like that." But I couldn't explain it. I didn't even have the words. I just knew what I saw didn't feel normal. Eventually, I had to leave for class, so I did, still shaky, still checking my phone every 5 seconds. I called her on my way, and she tried to reassure me again. She was like, "Don't worry, I'm okay." And she even laughed a little, like she wanted to lighten it up. And then right as I'm pulling up at school, she goes, all casual, "It was a joke." Like, "Girl." No, it wasn't. And she swears it was, but deep down, I know what I saw. That wasn't her playing around. That was something else. And what makes it worse is, this hasn't been the only weird thing lately. Like, over the past month, she's had other unsettling stuff happen. One night she told me she was dozing off in her room. Everyone else was asleep, my stepdad included, right there in bed next to her. And she said she saw this shadow, like the shape of a person, move past the TV, which is directly across from her. She got scared, closed her eyes, and forced herself back to sleep. And when he finally got her fully awake, she shot up into a panic. Like full panic, screaming, praying, shaking, like she thought something was in the room with her. That's basically all she's admitted to me, because she doesn't like telling me things that'll freak me out. But I can tell she's been holding back. And here's the part that messes with me. Creepy stuff has been happening in that house since I was little, since I was like 7. And I'm 25 now. I'm not even someone who's super deep into believing in paranormal stuff, but it's always been there in the background, you know? And after my abuelo passed away in my mom's bedroom back in 2016, It's like things got heavier, like the house changed. So now I'm stuck between two thoughts. Am I reading too much into it? Or am I ignoring something I shouldn't? Because what I saw that morning, her eyes open, staring, not responding, was the most unsettling thing I've ever experienced. And I honestly don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. These past few days have been so cold, haven't they? It's the perfect weather to sit here together and listen to mysterious stories from all around the world. Hello, dear friends of the Paranormal M channel. Thank you for sending in so many chilling experiences. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss more eerie stories to help you unwind after a long day. Now, get into bed, switch on your nightlight, and let's begin. Okay, I'm not totally sure how to start this without sounding dramatic, but there's been something with me for as long as I can remember. My mom, Layla, doesn't like talking about it, so what I know from when I was little is kind of pieced together. Apparently, as a toddler, I used to tell her I had friends in the house, or that I was seeing things that weren't there. She said I'd draw pictures of it, like over and over, and the second I'd hand them to her, she'd toss them. Not in front of me, but, you know, like she was trying to erase it. We moved when I was still pretty young, into a newer place, and for a while, everything went quiet. I almost forgot about it. Then when I was about 7 or 8, it happened again. Like, really happened. My bedroom looked straight out to the hallway, and you could also see the living room door from my bed. We live somewhere where earthquakes are common, so back then my parents wanted me sleeping with the bedroom door cracked open. In case we have to get to you fast, that kind of thing. One night I woke up and saw it. A huge black cat stepped out from the living room, way too big to be normal. It just stood there, watching me. Its eyes were this shiny, unnatural yellow, and its mouth was slightly open like it was smiling, or maybe showing teeth. I could see the fangs. And then, right there in the hallway, it started to change. It stood up on two legs, like it was shrugging off the cat shape, and it turned into this tall, painfully skinny man. Except, man doesn't even feel like the right word. It was more like a shadow shaped like a person. No face, no features, just darkness. And those same yellow eyes. It walked into my room like it had every right to be there. Then it sat down on the end of my bed, facing me. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I did the only thing my little kid brain could think to do. I pulled the blanket over my face and stayed completely still. But I could feel the mattress dip. I could feel the weight at the end of the bed like someone was actually sitting there. Eventually, I fell asleep like that, and trapped under my own blanket. After that night, I basically couldn't sleep with the door open ever again. I didn't see it transform like that again, but it never fully went away. Over the years, it would show up during the worst parts of my life. When I was really depressed, like the kind of depressed where you start feeling haunted by your own thoughts. It was always there at the edge of my vision. Just a presence, a shape in the corner, something watching without stepping fully into view. Sometimes I'd hear someone call my name from somewhere else in the house, or I'd hear footsteps coming up the stairs, deliberate, and they'd stop right outside my door like whoever it was just standing there, listening. When I moved away for college, I thought it would finally stop. New place, new life, new people. But it followed me. My partner at the time, Nico, started noticing things too. Not constantly, but enough that I couldn't pretend I was imagining everything. He'd hear the steps sometimes, or swear he heard someone speaking when we were alone. Then when my mental health started sliding again, it got worse. The lights would flick off, but only in the room I was in. Electronics would glitch or die like the energy got sucked out of them. Nico started seeing cabinet doors open by themselves, and once he said a glass shifted on the counter like someone had nudged it. When we broke up, weirdly, I still felt the presence, but it faded a little. And as my life stabilized, it became easier to ignore. I got used to it in this awful way, like you get used to living next to loud train tracks. You don't love it, but you stop jumping every time it happens. Then my sister moved out, and I was living alone again. I adopted this rescue puppy. His name was Miso, and he was tiny but fearless. And one day he started barking at my bedroom door. Not like normal puppy barking, like warning barking. Like, something is on the other side of this. My door was closed. Miso had his little body stiff, ears up, staring straight at the door like it was breathing. And I felt it, this rush of unease that turned into full-body fear. I didn't think. I just shouted. I screamed at whatever it was to leave, over and over, like I was trying to fill the apartment with my voice so there was no room for it. And it worked. The feeling eased. Miso stopped barking. After I calmed down, I did something that sounds ridiculous saying out loud. I sat on the floor in front of the door and I talked to it like it could hear me. I told it I knew it was the same presence from when I was a kid. I told it I didn't know what it was or what it wanted. But I also told it something else, something I hadn't really done before. I set rules. I said, "This room is off limits. Me and Miso are safe in here. You are not welcome in this space. You can exist in the apartment if you're going to, but not in here." And after that, things eased up. Miso got calmer. He still stared into corners sometimes, like dogs do, but the growling stopped. The barking stopped. And I started doing this strange thing, because I was alone and trying to heal, and I guess my brain needed someone to talk to. I'd talk to Miso, and sometimes I'd talk to myself, and slowly, without even noticing when it happened, I started talking to the presence too. Not like I expected answers. I didn't. It was more like narrating my life into the air. But then I noticed that when it showed up, it didn't feel as heavy. The shadows weren't as dark. It felt less threatening, almost watchful in a different way, like it shifted depending on the mood of the room. For a while, I even wondered, seriously, if it was some kind of guardian. Like it looked scary because that's the only shape it knew how to take, but maybe it wasn't there to hurt me. Still, I kept the boundary. The bedroom stays mine. Then about a year later, I was preparing to move back to my hometown. Miso was staying with my parents while I packed and sorted everything out at the apartment. I was doing better mentally, and honestly, I had stopped feeling the presence at all. Until one night. I was sitting in my room watching videos, half asleep, and suddenly my stomach dropped. That awful sinking feeling, like when you realize something is wrong before you even know what. I stared at my bedroom door, and this is the part that freaks me out the most, because it felt like I had to open it, like something was pulling on my brain, making it feel urgent. The pressure built until I was genuinely afraid that if I didn't open the door, something bad would happen to me. So I opened it. The hallway looked darker than it should have, even with moonlight coming in. The air felt thick, like it was holding its breath. I walked out toward the living room, and that's when I saw it. Tiny sparks spitting from an outlet near the couch. A cable had been chewed up, probably Miso earlier when he was still with me, and I had somehow never noticed. The outlet was malfunctioning, sparking hard enough that my couch was right there, close enough it could have caught. I unplugged everything, stopped it before it got worse, and the second it was handled, the apartment felt normal again. Bright again. Like whatever pressure had been pushing me evaporated. I went back to bed thinking, okay, that was weird, but at least I caught it. I laid there staring at the ceiling, trying to sleep, and then the fear came back. Something crawled, not on the floor, on the ceiling. I saw those yellow eyes in the upper corner of the room, sharp and clear, and the shape was wrong. Too long, too many angles, limbs stretching like shadows pulled thin. It moved closer along the ceiling like a spider made of darkness. That time, it didn't feel curious. It didn't feel watchful. It felt like a warning. I managed to force my body to move, and I screamed at it, screamed until my throat hurt, that it wasn't welcome, that it couldn't come in here, that it needed to get out. And then, like flipping a switch, everything went back to normal. I called my mom, sobbing. She didn't ask questions. She just helped me breathe, helped me calm down. And we agreed I would leave the next day, and I wouldn't come back to that apartment alone. Not unless my dog or someone from my family was with me. I slept with all the lights on, and even then I could feel the darkness out in the hallway, like it was waiting. And ever since then, I haven't been able to stop wondering, did it force me to open the door to get me out into the living room on purpose? Was it tricking me? Or did it push me because the apartment was about to catch fire, and it was the only way to get my attention? Did it save me? Or did it corner me? I moved back home after that, and for a while everything was fine, peaceful, normal. But lately, it's been creeping back in. Little things, like movement in the corner of the hallway, like the feeling that something is peeking around door frames just enough to remind me it's still there. And the worst part is, my mom has noticed it too. She's mentioned hearing footsteps on the stairs that stop outside my bedroom. She's mentioned seeing something shift in the hallway when no one else is awake. And I'm exhausted. I'm not even screaming terrified anymore. I'm just tired of living with a question mark in the corner of every room. I want to know what it is. I want to know why it attached itself to me, how it started, what it wants, if it wants anything. When I try to ask my mom, she shuts down. She tells me not to engage, not to talk to it, not to invite it in. But after all these years, it feels like ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. It just makes it quieter. And I don't know how much longer I can live with quiet footsteps and yellow eyes that only show up when I'm most vulnerable. So, let me tell you about my wife, Kelsey, and her grandma, Nana June. Back in spring of 2021, Nana June moved in with us. Kelsey adored her, like really adored her. The kind of love where you don't just say, "We'll take care of her." You quietly rearrange your whole life so she can feel safe and comfortable every day. She took one of our spare bedrooms, the one Kelsey used to use as her office, and we turned it into Nana June's space. We got her one of those adjustable beds so she could sleep easier, and I mounted a smart TV on the wall. That part was my job, obviously. Then came the harder part, teaching her how to actually use it. She'd grown up on cable. Apps were not her world. But she was a good sport about learning, especially when she realized the biggest upside: no commercials. Nana June only ever wanted to watch 3 things: Law and Order, Chicago PD, and wrestling. And Law and Order was the clear favorite. You could always tell when it came on because of that sound, that sharp, familiar dun-dun, and the gavel hit. It became part of the house's background noise. Honestly, it wasn't even new to us. That sound had been in her home for years. I still have an old voicemail from Nana June, like from way back, and you can literally hear the Law and Order gavel in the background while she's talking. It's one of those little things you don't think will matter someday, until it suddenly matters a lot. Later in 2021, she got really sick. That awful virus. I don't even like saying it out loud, because even now it makes my throat tighten. But she didn't make it. We were heartbroken. And then we had this room, her room, that still looked like her. The bed, the TV, everything. Sometimes one of us would go in there late at night and just sit, talk about her, watch something quietly so we didn't wake the other person. Without even planning it, we kept calling it Nana June's room. We still do. About a month after she passed, the first strange thing happened. I was up late in Nana June's room getting ready for a New Year's weekend camping trip. I was excited, so I was doing that restless late-night organizing, spreading gear out, sorting it into packs, making sure I had everything. I had a survival show on in the background, something like Survivor Man or Dual Survival, just noise while I worked. At one point, I was down on the floor, and I remember thinking, actually saying to myself, "Man, it's hot in here." I wiped sweat off my forehead, and right then, I heard the click, like an actual wall switch being flipped. And immediately the ceiling fan kicked on, blades spinning, air moving, that sudden rush of cool breeze like the room had decided to take care of me. And here's the part that surprises people. I wasn't scared. My first thought wasn't ghost or haunting or anything dramatic. My first thought was, Nana June turned the fan on for me. Now, my brain, my skeptical, technical brain, tried to clean it up into something reasonable. Maybe the switch was loose. Maybe it was sitting right on the edge between off and on, and the plastic or metal shifted because of temperature. Materials expand and contract. That's real. That happens. But still, I said out loud, without thinking, "Thanks, Nana June." And I slept in there that night like it was nothing. After that, sometimes I'd use that bed just to relax, play a game on my Switch with the TV on, unwind, whatever. The room felt quiet, familiar, almost watched over. Then a couple months later, something happened to Kelsey. She tries the remote. Nothing. She presses the power button again. Nothing. Now she's annoyed, thinking the batteries died. She keeps clicking it, frustrated, half asleep, and then suddenly, the TV screen flashes brighter and, super loud, the room fills with dun-dun, that Law and Order sound, clear as day, like someone hit play on it on purpose. And immediately after that sound, the TV shuts off by itself. The whole room goes dark. And Kelsey, this is the part that gets me. She doesn't panic. She doesn't run out of the room. She just kind of pauses, then rolls over and goes right back to sleep. The next morning she tells me, and it's like something inside me clicks into place, because it didn't feel like a random glitch anymore. It felt personal, like a little signature, like the only way Nana June would ever announce herself. And look, I'm not a spooky story person. I'm a very logical, skeptical guy. I've worked with tech for years, software, hardware, audio-video systems. I'm the kind of person who clears caches compulsively. I unplug things. I test things. I troubleshoot things until the mystery is dead. So, could it have been some weird audio buffer in the TV? Some leftover clip stuck in memory? I mean, maybe, but it doesn't make sense. Not really. We hadn't watched Law and Order on any TV since she passed. That TV has been powered down, unplugged, used for different shows, different apps, games, everything. If there was a leftover audio ghost in the machine, it had a million chances to show up in a random way. But it didn't. It showed up at the exact moment it would mean something. Like a message, like a nudge, like someone saying, "Hey, I'm still here. I'm okay." And honestly, however you explain it, the only way it feels is this. Nana June just wanted to say hi. Okay, so I'm going to tell this the same way I tell it to friends, in 3 pieces. The backstory, the stuff I grew up hearing, and then what actually happened to me when I finally lived there. So, the house. My mom, Diane, owns this old place that my great-grandpa Ray built. I don't know, maybe 60-something years ago, give or take. It's barely been updated, which sounds charming until you're standing in a kitchen that still feels like it's stuck in a different decade, and the cabinets are literally starting to sag like they're tired. I lived there for a little while when I was a toddler, but I remember basically none of it. What I do remember is how people reacted to it. Even as a kid, if I brought friends over, they'd get that look, like they were trying to be polite, but their whole body was going, "Nope, absolutely not." And I grew up with this casual family understanding that the house had company. Not in a dramatic horror movie way, more like, oh yeah, there are spirits there. Like it was a weird extra feature of the property. But honestly, I didn't spend much time there until a couple years back, when I moved into the basement with my boyfriend at the time, Caleb, for about a year. He's my fiancé now, which is funny because he still insists I'm suggestible and too friendly with the supernatural. Anyway, what I was told growing up. So when I was little, my parents had a handful of stories they'd tell, sometimes like warnings, sometimes like family folklore. First one, the man outside. My dad, Mark, used to say the house sat on land that had belonged to indigenous people. We never actually verified any of that. It's possible based on the area, but no one ever dug into it properly. Still, my dad would swear he occasionally saw a man outside the house dressed in traditional regalia. Not scary, not threatening, more like watchful. My dad described the feeling as steady, even comforting. Like the presence wasn't there to bother anyone, just be there. Second one, the cat. Before I was born, my mom had this orange cat named Mango. She rescued him, and back then he was mostly an outdoor cat because that was just what people did. He died in a really upsetting way involving a neighbor, and I won't go into details, but it was the kind of death that sticks to you, especially if you love the animal. After Mango was gone, my mom would say she still heard him sometimes. Little sounds. A brush against a leg when no one was there. And my dad once said he felt a cat walk across the bed at night. Slow, deliberate steps. Except there was no cat. But the strangest Mango thing was this. Years later, my mom was repainting a room that was eventually going to become my playroom. She paints one whole wall, fresh and clean, then steps out for a bit. When she comes back, she swears on her life. The entire newly painted wall is covered in orange cat hair. Like someone took a brush and just threw it across the wet paint. And that room, by the way, was always the one that felt the weirdest. Third one, the playroom. That room had its own energy. It was always cold, like the temperature dropped the second you stepped through the door. Maybe it was bad insulation. Maybe it was the fact that every repair in that house was a figure it out as you go kind of situation. But still, it felt wrong in a way I can't totally explain. My mom claimed she'd seen shadowy figures pass by the doorway, like movement that didn't belong to anyone in the house. And toys with batteries, especially talking toys, would activate on their own. Now sure, toys glitch. But my mom was obsessive about switching them off before bed. She always was. So the fact that they were both on, both reacting, in the middle of the night, in that room, it freaked her out. What happened to me? Here's the part people expect to be the big reveal, and I always have to disappoint them a little. I never saw a man in ceremonial clothing. I never saw an orange cat. I never saw a shadow figure move across a doorway. What I did have, though, was this persistent feeling that I wasn't alone, even when I definitely was. And there are 3 moments that still stick with me because they were just odd in a way that didn't match the normal house noises. 1. The swoosh. This is the smallest one, but it's hard to describe without sounding like I'm reaching. I was sitting on the bed in the basement bedroom, and Caleb was in the bathroom 1 room over. Shared wall, close enough that you can hear little movements. And I felt him come into the room. Like, not emotionally, physically. I heard the soft footstep sounds, and I felt that subtle shift in the air, that someone just entered Swoosh. I looked up fully expecting to see him. Nothing. And then I heard him still moving around in the bathroom. He hadn't left. He hadn't opened the door. It was like the house performed the idea of him walking in. 2. The front door. The house was kind of falling apart in that charming but annoying way. The front door in particular was a nightmare. It stuck constantly because of this janky DIY weather stripping, and the knob was loose enough that it sometimes wouldn't catch properly. The key would turn and do nothing. And because of a few circumstances I won't get into, we basically had to use that door. So I started doing this thing, half joking, half sincere, where I'd greet whatever might be there. Like, "Hi, okay, it's me." And then I'd say, out loud, "Can you let me in?" Or, "Please don't make this hard today." Tell me why it worked. Not every time, but often enough that I noticed a pattern. I'd ask, I'd fiddle with the key, and suddenly it would give in like it had just decided to cooperate. Caleb hated it because he didn't want to encourage me, but I also know he secretly got freaked out when it worked too smoothly. And honestly, part of me did it because if something was there, the thought of it being ignored for decades felt sad. Like, imagine being stuck in a place and nobody even acknowledges you. So I'd say hello, just in case. 3. The giggle. This one is the cleanest, most straightforward moment, and it still gives me chills. One night, Caleb and I were watching a movie. Nothing creepy, just normal background noise, and we both heard a little kid giggle. Not a laugh track, not muffled dialogue, a clear, quick, playful giggle, like a child standing a few feet away trying not to be noticed. I immediately went, "Did you hear that?" And Caleb, without even looking away at first, goes, "Yeah, it was in the movie." So I paused it, rewound, played the exact moment again. No giggle. And the look on his face after that, when he realized it wasn't the movie, was the closest he's ever come to admitting the house might have been interacting with us. That's it. That's my year in that basement. Nothing huge, nothing cinematic. Just enough little moments, quiet and strange and perfectly timed, to make you feel like the house was listening back. So, when I was really little, like toddler little, maybe 3 or 4, my family lived in this big, boxy house that felt way too large for us. It was just me, my 2 older sisters, Nora and Callie, and my parents, Megan and Dave. And I know this is going to sound dramatic, but that house always felt off, like it didn't want to be lived in. There were small things at first, the kind of stuff adults try to shrug off. My dad would tell my mom he heard footsteps upstairs when he was completely alone. My mom joked that the place was cursed with mess, but she also swore that no matter how much she cleaned, it never stayed clean. Things vanished constantly. Not like, "Oh, it'll turn up later," vanished. More like the house swallowed them. My sister Nora was the one who always said she could sense things. She'd get quiet in certain rooms, stare at corners, refuse to go down a hallway alone. And both Nora and Callie insisted that the room I slept in had something in it. Something mean. They used words like entity, and once, when they thought I wasn't listening, they even said demon. I didn't understand what any of that meant at the time. I just remember how the air felt in that room. Heavy. Like the dark didn't just fill the room, it pressed against you. Even now, I only have a handful of clear memories from that age, but 2 of them have never left me. The first one is strange and terrifying in a way that almost feels unreal. I remember waking up and not being able to move. My eyes were open, my brain felt awake, but my body wouldn't listen. and I saw these long, purplish arms around me, thin and bony, curving over my chest like I was trapped inside some kind of rib cage. Like something had built a cage out of itself just to keep me pinned there. And then, this is where it gets even weirder. I remember tumbling out of bed, like my body suddenly released, and I hit the floor. And right after that, I saw a man I didn't recognize rush toward me. In my memory, he's not blurry or dreamlike. He's fast, intentional, and he has a knife. I know how it sounds, I know. I was a preschooler. It could have been a nightmare tangled up with sleep paralysis. But that doesn't stop it from feeling real when it flashes back into my head. But the second memory, the second one is the one I hate thinking about. Because it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like a moment I walked through. Back then, I used to wake up at night and go find my parents. Their bedroom was upstairs. To get there, I had to leave my room, go out into this odd hallway that bent in a sharp turn near the kitchen, then climb the stairs. The house had this awkward layout, walls that jutted out, corners that blocked your view just enough to make you feel like something could be standing there without you knowing. One night, I got up like I always did. I remember the floor being cold under my feet. I remember the house being silent in that deep, thick way it gets when everyone's asleep. And as I walked past the kitchen area, I saw something behind this short dividing wall that separated the kitchen from the hallway. At first, my brain registered it as socks. Just a pair of socks, standing upright, like they were planted on the floor as if someone had stepped out of them, or like someone had pulled them up and was standing perfectly still, hiding behind the wall, but only the socks were visible. And I stopped. I can't explain how I knew. I didn't hear anything, I didn't see a body, but the feeling hit me like ice water. Like whatever was there wanted me to notice it, but didn't want to fully show itself. I remember my stomach dropping. I remember that instinct that says, don't run, don't look too hard, just keep going. So I did. I walked faster, like pretending it wasn't there would protect me. I went up the stairs, got into my parents' room, and climbed into their bed. They were both there, both asleep. No one else was awake. No one else was wandering around. No prank, no sister messing with me. Nothing that could explain what I saw. And the worst part is, it's not even the image that haunts me the most. It's the feeling. That quiet certainty that what I saw was a someone pretending to be a something. And even now, years later, I can still picture those socks, upright, still, half hidden behind the kitchen wall, like the house was holding its breath, waiting to see if I'd figure out what was really standing there. So this happened when I was about 15, which feels like a whole lifetime ago now. I'm a little fuzzy on the exact sequence of events, so I might miss a detail or two. But I remember the feeling of it really clearly. I was out of state that summer, visiting some friends. I'll call them Mia and Jordan. And they invited me to this one-night summer thing at their church. It was meant to be fun. There were games outside, some kind of goofy contest. I think it was a pie-eating contest. Or maybe it was watermelon. Honestly, I'm not totally sure. And then everyone went inside for a short talk afterward. Back then, I was still Christian. My relationship with faith has changed a lot since. I've gone through seasons where I stepped away completely, and seasons where I circled back. These days, I'm careful with it. Open, but also aware I'm carrying some religious trauma, so I don't force certainty anymore. I just try to be honest about where I'm at. And at that point in my life, honesty would have sounded like I was not okay. I was living with my mom, and it was abusive. It was one of those situations where you learn how to shrink yourself so you don't set anything off, and you start living in your own head because it feels safer than being fully present. I remember walking around before the service, people laughing, talking, doing normal summer stuff, and I was physically there, but mentally I was somewhere dark, just spiraling, ruminating, that heavy, sinking kind of thinking where everything feels pointless and permanent. So we sit down for the talk, and I'm still barely listening. The speaker was a young guy, I'll call him Caleb, and he started talking about the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And I remember one line because it was so specific. He said something like, "Knowledge is knowing what a box is. Wisdom is knowing what belongs inside it." Something along those lines. I remember thinking, okay, sure, that's fine. And then I drifted again. And then, this is where it gets weird. Caleb starts describing a scenario, and at first it's just relatable in a general way. Like, yeah, lots of people go through hard stuff, you know? But then it gets more specific, and more specific, and suddenly my brain snaps awake because I'm sitting there thinking, wait, that's my life. That is literally what's happening to me right now. It wasn't just similar in a vague, inspirational way. It felt uncomfortably close, like someone had been reading pages out of my journal. And then he shifted into this other part of the message, and I swear to you, it felt like he was answering thoughts I'd been having earlier that day. Not just the theme of them, the exact shape of them. Like my mind would throw up a sentence, and then a moment later he'd say something that felt like a reply. My heart started pounding. I remember thinking, what the hell is happening? Is this a coincidence? Did someone tell him something? How would anyone even know? And then he stopped pacing around the stage and said, really firmly, like he was talking to one person, "Go to someone you trust." He said it again. Go to someone you trust. And again, over and over, like he was underlining it with his whole voice. And I just broke, quietly but completely. Tears started running down my face, and I was trying so hard to hide it because I felt embarrassed. Like I was being dramatic, like everyone would turn and look and know something was wrong with me. And then, I'll never forget this part. He kind of cut himself off mid-thought, like he surprised himself, and he said something like, "I don't even know why I'm saying this right now." And I remember feeling cold all over, because that was the exact moment it stopped feeling like a normal speech. It felt like something was happening through him, or like the room had narrowed down to just me and that one sentence. Go to someone you trust. That night ended, and I don't remember much else. I remember leaving, and the air outside feeling different than when I walked in, like I'd been underwater and suddenly surfaced. The next day, Mia and Jordan asked me how it was. They told me Caleb had apparently noticed me and thought I didn't like the service. And I tried to answer casually. I tried to play it off. But the second I opened my mouth, I started crying again. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears I couldn't stop. And I remember saying really quickly, avoiding the whole truth, "No, it was good. It was really good." Because how do you explain it without sounding insane? How do you say, "I felt like someone reached directly into my thoughts and pulled me back from the edge"? But the honest ending is simple. Whatever that was, coincidence, intuition, God, timing, my brain finally hearing what it needed to hear, it pushed me towards something I'd been too scared to do. It made it clear that I needed help, that I could reach out, that I should. And even now, years later, even in a better life, in my own place, away from that situation, it still gives me chills to think about. Not because it was scary in the usual way, more like, It was the kind of moment that makes you feel seen when you didn't realize how invisible you'd become. Okay, so this happened about a year and a half ago, and I still get that weird, tight feeling in my chest when I think about it. My family and I rented this really pretty Airbnb out in rural Pennsylvania. One of those houses that feels cozy the second you walk in. Warm lighting, nice furniture, not creepy at all. Like, it genuinely felt like a great place to spend a week. There are 7 of us total. My mom and dad, me, my brother, and 4 sisters. 2 of my sisters are younger, and the rest of us are in our 20s. The sleeping setup was kind of spread out. My parents took a bedroom on the main floor. The 2 younger girls were upstairs, and then the basement, finished, carpeted, totally normal, was for the older kids. My brother had his own room down there, and I shared another basement bedroom with my older sister Tessa. So, first night. I cannot sleep. I'm tossing around, staring at the ceiling, the whole thing. And when I finally do fall asleep, I start having this dream. Except it doesn't feel like a dream, you know? It feels like I'm trapped in it. In the dream, I keep waking up, and every time I look at the clock, it says 2:12 a.m. Every single time. And then this woman, like this shadowy, frantic-looking woman, comes rushing at me. She's wearing this pale dress. Her hair is long and black and all messed up, and she's holding a lamp like she's going to swing it at my head. And the worst part is, it loops. I wake up. It's 2:12. She charges at me. I panic. Then I wake up again, and it's 2:12 again. Over and over and over. Each time I'm crying harder, screaming harder, and I can't break out of it. When I finally actually wake up for real, I'm full-on sobbing. Like that kind of crying where you can't catch your breath. I ended up waking Tessa up, and she's half asleep, trying to calm me down, and I'm just sitting there shaking like I ran a mile. The next morning, we're all at breakfast, and my brother, Mason, is in a foul mood. Just silent, pushing food around. My mom notices immediately and she goes, "What's going on with you? Why are you so cranky?" And Mason looks up and goes, completely serious, "I had a really bad dream." And I'm already frozen because I can feel where this is going. He goes, "There was this creepy woman and she kept attacking me. Like, she wouldn't stop." I swear the air in the room changed. Tessa and I just stared at him. Tessa actually thought Mason and I were messing with her, like we planned some dumb prank. She starts accusing us, and my mom gets irritated because my 2 younger sisters are at the table, listening with big eyes. My mom's like, "Stop it. Don't scare your sisters. There's no such thing as ghosts." And literally, right then, the basement door slams shut. Not a gentle close, not a drafty little click, a slam so hard everyone jumped. And here's what got me. That door was in the middle of the house. No windows open, no breeze, nothing. My mom does that thing where she immediately tries to rationalize it. She's like, "Okay, coincidence. It's an old house. Doors move." But nobody was laughing anymore. Not even a little. We left for the day, went out, did normal stuff, tried to shake it off, and when we came back, the front door was standing open. Not unlocked, open. And then we notice other things. Interior doors open too, like all around the house. Even drawers and cabinets in the kitchen were pulled out like someone had been rummaging. My dad called the police. They actually came and searched the house, every room, upstairs, basement, closets, everything. No one was there. That night, I'm trying to pretend everything is normal, but the energy is just heavy, like the house is holding its breath. Then at some point, Tessa shakes me awake and she is sobbing, like ugly crying. She's gripping my arm so tight it hurt. And she keeps saying, "Please make it stop. Please, just tell me you're real. Tell me you're real." And I'm like, "Tessa, what are you talking about?" Because she's freaking me out so bad. And she tells me she had the same dream. The woman, the attacking, the looping, the waking up and it being the same time. At that point, we were beyond spooked. We're adults, but we were genuinely scared. So the next night, the three of us, me, Tessa, and Mason, sleep in Mason's room together. 3 grown people, in our 20s, huddled up like kids at a sleepover. That's how freaked out we were. My parents were annoyed. They thought we were feeding off each other and being dramatic. And honestly, I tried to lighten the mood because I didn't know what else to do. I was joking with my siblings like, "Fine, I'll talk to the ghost." And I'm whispering into the air like an idiot going, "Hey, ghost, if you're confused and you need something, you gotta take it up with my mom, okay? She's the manager." We laughed, nervous laughter, but it broke the tension a little. Until that night. Around 3 a.m., we hear screaming upstairs. Real screaming. We run out into the hallway, and my mom is losing it. Like, shaking, yelling, frantic. She's shouting at my dad, accusing him of messing with her, saying, "This isn't funny. Stop, stop." My dad is half awake, totally confused, like, "What are you talking about? I didn't do anything." And my mom, who had been rolling her eyes at all of us, looked genuinely terrified. Not annoyed, not skeptical, terrified. She wouldn't even fully explain what happened. She just kept saying something like, "I know what I saw," and "I'm not doing this," and "We're leaving." And she meant it. The next morning, she made us pack. Immediately. We had days left on the reservation, no refund, nothing. My dad was trying to reason with her, like, "We can't just..." And she didn't care. She was done. We left that house and never went back. My parents even bought last-minute tickets home because my mom refused to stay one more night anywhere near that place. And to this day, I still don't know exactly what my mom saw. She's never described it in detail, just that it scared her enough that she didn't care about money, plans, anything. And my siblings still blame me. They're like, "You 100% invited something in when you started joking around." Which, listen, I know how ridiculous that sounds. I do. If someone told me this story, I'd probably be like, "Sure, okay." But I swear to you, it happened. And I still catch myself thinking about that dream. The clock, 2:12, and that woman rushing at me like she's been waiting. And I don't really know what I believe. I just know what we experienced. So, I've been sitting with this for a long time, and I'm finally at the point where I just have to say it out loud. I'm pretty convinced our little place is haunted. Or maybe it's not even just our place. Maybe it's the land the whole mobile home park sits on. It started with small stuff, the kind of thing you can brush off if you want to, like hearing your name, clear as day, being called in your mom's voice, except your mom is asleep, or she's not even home, or hearing footsteps in the hallway, slow and steady when the house is completely empty. And then there's the living room. Sometimes it sounds like there are people talking in there, like a low conversation just out of reach, but when you check, it's nothing. Just the TV off, the air still, nobody there. And the cold spots. Those are the strangest. You'll walk through the house and suddenly it's like you stepped into a pocket of winter. No window open, no door cracked, nothing that should explain it. It's just cold. Wrong cold. Before anyone jumps to the usual explanations, I promise we've been down that road. There's no gas in our home, No gas appliances, none of that. So that's off the list. And we've got a smoke detector with a carbon monoxide detector built in, so it's not that either. And no, nobody in our family is dealing with anything mental health related that would explain shared experiences. This has happened to more than one of us, at different times, in different ways. People also love to assume demonic, especially because of the voice mimicry, but I don't think it's that. There's none of the classic stuff. No rotten meat smell, no knocking at 3 a.m., none of those movie signs. It's unsettling sometimes, sure, but it doesn't feel like something trying to hurt us. One of the moments that really stuck with me was this laundry basket incident. We had a plastic clothes basket sitting on top of the dryer. Dryer off, basket pushed toward the back, not balanced on an edge or anything. And somehow, it slid off like it was nudged and smacked onto the floor. Not toppled, slid. Like it moved first, then fell. My older brother, Evan, and his girlfriend at the time, Marissa, actually noticed things even before we fully moved in. They told me the kitchen was the worst. They'd be standing in there and swear they could hear someone walking around on the linoleum, like soft pacing. And then the voices, like multiple people talking over each other in the kitchen, but muffled, like it was happening in the next room. Except it wasn't. When Evan and Marissa were still living with us, there was one night where the three of us were home, only us, and we all heard plastic grocery bags rustling, like someone was digging through them, shifting them around, crinkling them. We froze and looked at each other because it wasn't subtle. It wasn't maybe. It was the kind of sound you'd hear if somebody was literally standing there with their hands in the bags. Later on, Evan dated another girl, Sienna, and she had her own experience. It was the dead of winter, and she said she walked through the hallway and hit this intense cold spot that didn't make sense. Then she told me, quietly, like she was embarrassed to even say it, that she saw a black shadow pass beside her in the dark. Not a person, not a shape she could explain, just a moving shadow that didn't belong to anything. And even after living here for almost 4 years, I can't explain most of it. Not even close. There's also this area behind the park, just past the last row of homes, kind of overgrown and quiet. During the day, it's whatever. But at night, the vibe back there changes. It feels heavy. Like something is there, and it knows you're looking, and it doesn't want to be. It's not that I always see anything. I don't. But I sense it. Like my body notices before my brain does. I've had paranormal experiences since I was a kid, well over a decade now. So as strange as this is, it doesn't exactly shock me. But what's important is this. Not every place we've lived had activity. So I've ruled out the idea that it's just me or my family carrying something around, like we're followed. If it were that, it would be everywhere. And it hasn't been. So I don't know. Maybe it's our home. Maybe it's the whole park. Maybe it's the land itself. But whatever it is, it's been here a long time, and it's comfortable enough to let us know it's around. So picture this. I'm spending one night alone at this little hotel off the highway. Nothing fancy, just one of those places you stay when you're passing through. My brother Evan drove me there, but he didn't come inside with me or anything. He dropped me at the front entrance. We said our goodbyes, and that was it. He didn't even know my room number. I get settled in, kick my shoes off, turn on some random TV show for background noise, just trying to relax. Then at about 9:40 p.m., the room phone rings. And it's weird, because who's calling a hotel room that late? My first thought is, maybe the front desk needs something? So I pick it up and go, "Hello?" Nothing. I pause, I listen, and I swear I hear something, like faint breathing. Not loud, not obvious, just enough to make my skin go a little tight. I say, "Hello?" again. Still nothing. So I hang up, telling myself it's probably just a glitch. But not even 10 minutes later, the phone rings again. Now I'm sitting up straighter. I pick it up. "Hello? Hi. Hello?" I say it a few times, trying to sound normal even though my heart's starting to thump. Again, silence. And again, that faint, maybe not real breathing. Like someone is there, but refusing to speak. After about 20 seconds of me listening to nothing, I hang up. At this point, I'm telling myself, okay, that's creepy. But maybe it's a wrong connection. Maybe someone's messing up dialing. Maybe anything else. And then, less than 10 minutes later, it rings a third time. That's when my stomach drops. Because once is a fluke, twice is unsettling, 3 times feels personal. So I don't even play polite anymore. I pick it up, say one sharp, "Hello?" And when I get the same dead air, I hang up and immediately unplug the room phone from the wall. I just stare at it for a second after I unplug it, like it might ring anyway. Then I call the front desk from my cell. A woman answers. She sounds tired but kind. I tell her, "Hi, I'm so sorry, but this is going to sound strange. The room phone has rang 3 times, and every time there's just silence. Maybe breathing? It's freaking me out." She pauses like she's taking me seriously, which I appreciate. Then she says, "No one has called asking to be connected to your room, but if it happens again, we can move you to a different room." I tell her I unplugged the phone for the night. She's like, "That's fine, and honestly, if we needed something, we would have just called your cell phone." And that should have made me feel better. But it didn't. Because here's the thing, to call a room phone, someone would usually have to go through the front desk, right? Like they'd have to ask to be connected. And nobody knew my room number, not even my brother. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't even posted anything. I hadn't talked to anyone at the hotel besides the person who checked me in. And I didn't think the front desk worker was messing with me either. In the background of her call, I could hear how quiet it was. No lobby TV blaring, no joking around, just normal. So I hang up, and I'm trying to convince myself it's nothing. But I'm also sitting there in this room with the unplugged phone on the nightstand like it's some kind of cursed object. And I'll be honest, I spent the next hour half watching the TV and half waiting. Every tiny sound, the air conditioner clicking, footsteps in the hallway, had me holding my breath like, is this it? Is something about to happen? Nothing did. I made it through the night, but I still can't explain it, not in a way that actually makes sense. And the worst part is, it didn't feel like a prank. It felt like someone, or something, was just there. Have you ever had anything like that happen? Like a phone call that wasn't a wrong number, wasn't the front desk, wasn't anyone you know, but still felt weirdly intentional. So, quick bit of context before I get into it. I wasn't the one in the hospital. My younger sister, Marissa, was. She'd had a couple scary seizures and ended up in the ICU for monitoring. She's completely okay now, but back then, it was one of those nights where everything feels heavy, you know? It was around midnight, and this was back when hospitals still had those chunky old box TVs mounted way up in the corner, like the kind that hummed even when the volume was low. My parents were back in Marissa's room with her, because only 2 people were allowed in at a time. So I was stuck in this tiny waiting area right outside the ICU corridor, trying to pretend I wasn't worried by watching whatever late-night show was on. The waiting room door faced straight down the hallway. At the end, the hall split, left or right, and it was one of those sterile, quiet hospital hallways that feels too long even when it's not. I'm sitting there watching TV when I catch movement out of the corner of my eye. At first I ignored it because, hospitals are full of motion. Nurses, carts, people shifting, lights flickering. Your brain fills in blanks all the time. But then it happens again. So I turn my head and just watch the end of the hallway. And that's when I see him. It looked like a little boy, maybe 5, 6 at the absolute oldest. He was small, like kid small, and he was moving, fast, almost like he was playing a game. He ran from one side of the hallway to the other, like back and forth, like he was chasing something only he could see. And here's the part that took a second to actually register. I could see through him. At first, my brain didn't even understand what it was looking at. It was almost normal for a beat, like, oh, a kid. And then your mind catches up and goes, wait, why can I see the wall behind him? He didn't look at me. He didn't hesitate. He just kept doing that same little run, back and forth, like he was stuck in a loop. No sound either. No footsteps, no laughter, nothing. Just the motion. And I remember thinking how impossible it was. There's no way a child is wandering around alone on an ICU floor at midnight, and definitely not sprinting up and down the hallway like it's a playground. Then, after a few passes, he was just gone. Not like he turned a corner or ran out of sight, more like the hallway simply didn't have him in it anymore. And I didn't feel scared, which is the weird thing. I felt kind of still, and then, honestly, kind of sad, like I just watched something lonely repeat itself. Later, when I thought about it, I wondered if it was one of those leftover moments people talk about, like a recording that replays, because he never acknowledged me at all. It didn't feel interactive. It felt like I just happened to be there when something echoed. And what's even stranger is, that wasn't my first weird experience. It was my third one, and all of them happened after I turned 16. Like something flipped on, like I suddenly became, if not a magnet, then at least a receiver for stuff most people don't notice. I don't know what I saw that night. I'm not going to pretend I can prove it, but I know what it looked like, and I know how it felt. And I still think about that little boy sometimes, running quietly back and forth in that bright hallway, like he was waiting for someone to catch up. Okay, so a little background so you can picture it. My mom, Marianne, was recovering from a knee surgery, and she was resting in the bedroom she shares with my stepdad, Caleb. Caleb was at work that day, so it was just the two of us in the house. I kept my bedroom door cracked open on purpose, just so I could hear her if she called for me or needed anything. Out in the kitchen, there was this small delivery box on the counter. Not huge, but not empty either. It had a couple random things inside, so it had some weight to it. Like, it wasn't the kind of box that's going to scoot around because of a breeze or vibration. It would take an actual shove to move it. Earlier, I'd been playing Dead by Daylight with my headset on. I finished a match, took the headset off, and started mindlessly scrolling on my phone for a bit. I think it was Instagram, just zoning out and letting my brain cool down. The house was quiet, except the TV in the living room playing softly in the background. No fans running, no windows open, nothing like that. Just still. And then I heard it. Not a vague little bump, I mean the clear, unmistakable sound of cardboard sliding across the counter. Like someone dragged that box for maybe a second or two. Just long enough for me to go, wait, what was that? At first, I kind of froze because my brain had to catch up. I literally had that moment where you replay it in your head like, did I seriously just hear a box move? And then the obvious thought hit me. There's nobody in the kitchen. My mom was in bed. I was in my room. Caleb wasn't home. And I'll be honest, I didn't go check. I just sat there, staring at my phone, suddenly way more aware of how quiet everything was. I wasn't terrified or anything. It was more like this prickly, uneasy feeling. Like being caught off guard when you thought you were completely alone. After a minute, I told myself, nope, not today. And I went right back to gaming, like if I ignored it hard enough, it would stop being real. Later on, when I finally did peek out, the box was sitting exactly where I remembered it being. Same spot, like nothing ever happened. Which almost made it worse, because then I couldn't even blame it on me bumping the counter earlier or something. And here's the thing, I've had little weird moments before. Like this one time, a while back, the smoke detector chirped and went off just after midnight for no reason, and then stopped. No low battery, no smoke, nothing. It felt mischievous, like something wanted a reaction. So yeah, if you ask me, I don't know what moved that box, but it sure felt like something decided to mess with me. Just a little, just enough to make me notice. So, this happened when I was 18, and I still get that weird, tight feeling in my chest when I think about it. There's this stretch of road where I grew up. 2-lane, quiet, nothing but thick woods pressed in on both sides. People have whispered about it for years. The story changes depending on who's telling it, but the version I always heard was that a school bus wrecked out there back in the late 70s or early 80s. A bunch of kids. Tragic. Awful. And then, like people do, folks turned it into a dare. They'd say, drive it heading west. Stop in the middle of the trees. Flick your headlights off and on a few times. Then keep going like nothing happened. And if the road liked you, or didn't, you'd see a single light fall in behind you and follow you until you hit the end of the woods, where it would whip off into the trees like it got yanked away. Now, I'd already had a couple of strange experiences in my life, so I wasn't exactly a full-blown skeptic. But I didn't buy that story. It sounded too clean, too much like something teenagers repeat because they want it to be true. Anyway, it was late, past 1 in the morning. I was riding up front with my cousin Marin and my older brother Eli. The kids were with us too, knocked out in the back, all curled up and breathing soft, the way they do when they're completely gone. We'd been out of town and stopped at the last gas station before the highway split. Bright fluorescent lights, stale coffee smell, the whole thing. And here's the part that still bugs me. As we pulled out of that gas station, I suddenly felt this urge, like a nudge, to tell them about that road. It wasn't even a conversation we were already having. I just brought it up. Like my mouth decided before my brain did. Marin laughed. Eli rolled his eyes. And then, because the kids were asleep and we were all wide awake, we decided to take the detour. Just to see, you know? That was the excuse. We turned onto the road and almost immediately realized we were facing the wrong direction for the rules. So we drove down to the intersection, flipped around, and headed the other way. I remember Eli slowing to a crawl, the headlights washing over the trees like searchlights. We stopped in the middle, where the woods felt the thickest, where the road felt like it narrowed even though it didn't, and Eli flicked the headlights 3 times. Off, on, off, on, off, on. Nothing. No light in the mirror, no weird glow. Just the hum of the engine and the soft snoring from the back seat. We kind of laughed it off, but we weren't ready to admit we'd driven out there for nothing. So we crossed back over to the side road, turned around in the parking lot of this little white church, and waited at the stop sign like we were suddenly big on traffic laws. That's when all 3 of us saw it. Halfway down the road, straight ahead, near the tree line, there were 2 eyes. Not reflective deer eyes. Not a your headlights hit an animal and it glints kind of thing. These were red, like ember red, glowing. And they were at about the height a deer's eyes would be, which somehow made it worse because deer don't do that. Not like that. We just froze. Nobody spoke at first. I remember Marin whispering, Do you see that?" Like she needed confirmation that she wasn't losing it. Eli swallowed hard and said, "Let's just drive. Slow." So we did. We rolled forward toward the exact spot where those eyes had been. And the second we reached it, the car radio turned on by itself. No one touched it. No one even moved. We were all on that front seat, shoulder to shoulder, hands visible, like we were in some interrogation room. The radio started flipping stations, fast. Snatches of country, a preacher's voice, a blast of static, a pop song, more static, like someone was twisting the dial with a nervous hand. It wasn't even landing long enough to make sense, just skipping and sputtering like it couldn't find a place to belong. That radio never did that before. It never did it after. We drove to the end of the road, turned left, and headed toward the highway home. By then, nobody was laughing anymore. The air in the car felt heavy, like the inside of a storm cloud. Once we hit the highway, everything should have felt normal again. It was summer, so the view was wide, no tall crops, no thick fog. You could see headlights coming from a long way off. And that's why what happened next still doesn't sit right with me. We'd barely gotten settled into the right lane when this black semi came roaring up behind us out of nowhere, like it had appeared in the space between one heartbeat and the next. It had lights everywhere, not just the usual headlights. There were rows of bright amber lights along the side. Except it didn't have a trailer. Just the cab. A huge, dark shape with too many glowing points, closing the distance fast. Eli sped up. 65, still gaining. 75, still gaining. I remember looking into the rearview mirror and feeling my stomach drop, because it didn't feel like a normal truck coming up behind you. It felt intentional, like it was chasing. Eli hit 80, knuckles white on the wheel, and finally we got to our turnoff, this back road that cut toward town. He took it hard, swung us onto it, and immediately slammed the brakes. We all sat there for half a second, listening to the kids breathing in the back, waiting to hear the semi rumble past. Nothing. Eli and I jumped out and looked back toward the highway, and there was no truck, no taillights, no amber side lights, nothing fading into the distance. And the thing is, that highway stretches straight for miles. There aren't side roads. There isn't a hidden turnoff for a long way. If a truck that lit up like a carnival ride had passed, we would have seen it. Even if it had somehow turned off, we would have seen the lights shift and vanish. But the highway was empty, like it had never existed. I remember Eli just staring, breathing hard, then looking at me like he was waiting for me to explain physics. Marin stayed in the car, eyes wide, whispering, "Where did it go?" We got back in and drove home quiet, like talking would make it real. And even now, years later, I can't give you a clean explanation. We weren't tired. We weren't imagining things. All three of us saw the same stuff: the red eyes, the radio, the truck. The only thing I can say, honestly, is that it felt like something out there noticed us, and it did not appreciate being tested. To this day, I won't drive that road at night. Not because I'm trying to be dramatic, because I don't want to find out what happens if it decides to follow us all the way home. So, I've sat on this story for a long time, and I still don't tell it lightly. This happened about 7 years back, maybe closer to 8. My mom, my stepdad, and I were going through a rough stretch, and for most of the summer, spilling into early fall, we ended up living at this state campground. Not for a weekend, Not for a vacation, like living there. Our campsite was toward the front, where it was a little more open, but pretty much everywhere else was woods. Thick trees, shadows that felt deeper at night, that kind of place. I had my own small tent, just big enough for me, my sleeping bag, and this little portable TV I'd watch to calm down at night. And leading up to the thing that happened, there was this sound. Almost every night, we'd hear something out in the trees, behind us, sometimes off to the right, sometimes across the little campground road. It wasn't constant, but it was enough that we started expecting it. It would scream or yell, loud enough to make the hair on your arms stand up. And before you say owl, I thought that too. I went down a rabbit hole. I listened to every owl call I could find. Barred owl, great horned, screech owl, everything. This wasn't that. It also wasn't the classic whoop people always talk about. It sounded bigger, rougher, like something trying to push sound out of a chest that didn't belong to a deer or a bird. By the time this happened, camping season was winding down. Most people were gone. There were still a handful of campers way off on the far end, and a couple spots tucked deeper in the back, but near us, it felt almost abandoned, quiet in that unsettling way. The night before my encounter, my stepdad, his name's Glenn, sat straight up in his sleeping bag and swore he heard someone messing with the cooler outside their tent. Like the lid opening, a little rummaging, that soft clink of ice shifting. He even whispered my name through the tent wall like, "Are you awake?" But I was out. Next morning we checked. Nothing missing. Not the snacks, not the drinks, not even the meat we kept buried at the bottom. And that stuck with us, because if it was a person snooping, why wouldn't they take something? Then came the next night. I remember I was sitting in my tent watching some movie I didn't even care about, just needed the noise. The glow of the screen made the tent feel less dark, like it put a little bubble around me. And then I heard footsteps. Not loud stomping, more like careful steps. Close enough that my stomach instantly tightened. I paused the movie and muted the TV so fast I almost knocked it over. I listened, and I heard the cooler. The lid opened. Ice shifted. Something moved around inside for a few seconds, like a hand feeling through it. Not frantic, just curious. Then the lid closed. My heart was pounding so hard I swear it was shaking my ribs. And then the steps moved away from the cooler and came straight toward my tent. I remember thinking, please just keep walking. Please just keep walking. But it didn't. It stopped right beside me. And then, this is the part that still makes my throat go tight. It pressed a hand against the side of my tent. Not a little tap, not a poke. It pushed in, like it wanted to feel what was inside. The fabric bowed inward, and the shape of the hand became clear. Palm, thick fingers, the whole outline. And because the TV had been on, there was still enough light inside the tent that I could see the color through the fabric. Dark, like a deep brown. The hand stayed there for maybe 5 seconds, just long enough to feel like a full minute. Then it slowly pulled away, and the footsteps backed off, and walked away into the dark, like it had never been there at all. No running, no laughing, no whispering, just gone. I didn't sleep, not really. I lay there listening for another hour, maybe more, expecting it to come back. But it didn't. The next day, I didn't even think to look for footprints. People always ask that. Did you check the ground? And I wish I had. I really do. But I was in this weird fog for days afterward, like my brain didn't know where to file what happened. I've gone over the possibilities 100 times. It didn't feel like a person messing around. There wasn't that human energy. No joking, no lingering to scare me again. And the town nearby was tiny, the kind of place where you'd notice if there were people wandering around looking for food. It just didn't add up. What it did feel like was something young, curious, testing boundaries. Like it didn't actually want to take anything, it just wanted to see. And there's one more thing, and I know this part sounds strange, but it stuck with me too. One night, separate from the hand thing, I woke up around 1 or 2 in the morning, and for a few seconds I swear I heard drums. Not modern drums, more like that steady, distant thump-thump you'd imagine in an old battlefield movie. It faded quickly, and maybe it was my half-asleep brain playing tricks, but here's the weird part. There was a historic battle fought in that region way back in the 1700s. Not right on top of the campground, but close enough that people in town talk about it. So sometimes I wonder if that area just holds things, sounds, stories, whatever you want to call it. I still haven't stayed at that campground again, but I think about it more than I'd like to admit. And part of me, this is the honest truth, part of me wants to go back, just once, and sit in that same patch of woods and listen. Not because I want to be scared again, because I want to know what it was that reached out and touched the wall of my tent. So, I work the front desk at a hotel down here in Mexico, and I've got one of those stories that still makes me pause every time I walk past a certain door. It was earlier this month when we had 3 guests staying in room 1214 for just 2 nights. It started like a totally normal day, until it didn't. A couple showed up mid-afternoon, no reservation. They were both in their 30s. Let's call them Marisol and Dante, and they asked if we had anything available. We did, so I checked them in like usual. Dante casually mentioned, "One more person is coming later tonight." They were Latino, visiting from the US, and at first glance they looked like any other travelers. Except Marisol. She barely spoke. Not in a shy way. More like she was trying not to move her face. Her expression was tight, uncomfortable, like she was either in pain or seriously irritated. Dante kept leaning toward her, murmuring things like, "Are you lightheaded?" and "Do you want to lie down?" And she'd just give this tiny shake of her head. While they waited in the lobby for the room to be finished, Dante said something that made everything click a little. "Please, I don't want her walking too much. We're coming from a medical office and she isn't feeling well." I remember nodding like, "Okay, that explains the look on her face." Still weird, but at least it made some sense. The next day was my day off, so I wasn't around for whatever happened in between. But when I came back for the morning shift 2 days later, around 6:30 a.m., I found out the energy had shifted. About 10 minutes into my shift, Dante comes in from outside, looking rushed, and asks to settle their restaurant charges because they were leaving soon. They had a flight that morning. Then, around 8 a.m., he comes back down and drops the key cards on the counter, like he's trying not to waste a second. He steps outside to call a rideshare. And right behind him, this is the part I can still picture too clearly, comes the third guest, Elias, guiding Marisol through the lobby. Marisol had a cloth tied over her eyes. Not sunglasses, not a sleep mask. A cloth, like a blindfold. Elias had one hand lightly on her arm, steering her carefully, whispering instructions like, "Okay, step here. Careful, there's a curb. Slow." I just stood there watching, pretending to look busy, because what do you even do with that? The strange part was, besides the blindfold, she looked fine. Pale maybe, but not stumbling, not weak. Just blindfolded. Like it was intentional. They left, and for a moment everything went quiet again, until housekeeping found me maybe 20 minutes later. One of them came up and said, super seriously, "Can you come see the room?" Something is wrong. So I went. As soon as I got to room 1214, I saw blankets piled outside the door, like they'd been dragged out and dropped. I took a couple steps closer and then, no exaggeration, the smell hit me. Blood. That sharp, metallic smell you don't confuse with anything else. Inside, there was a towel on the bed soaked through, and it had stained the mattress underneath. Clothes were scattered across the floor like someone grabbed what they could and ran, and later housekeeping told me those clothes had blood on them too. But the thing that made my skin prickle wasn't even the blood. It was the mirror. There was a mirror mounted on the wall, and someone had covered it with a washcloth, like they didn't want it looking at anything, like they didn't want to see themselves, or like they didn't want something else to see them. I stepped back out, told housekeeping to stay put, and went straight to my manager. We took the room out of service immediately and did a deep cleaning. They said they'd found crosses around the room, not drawn in marker, not scratched in, not taped up. Crosses made from oil. On the walls, on the table, on the headboard, on the TV frame, even on parts of the mirror. Like someone had dipped a finger in oil and quietly marked the room with them. We cleaned everything we could, but some of those oily cross marks are still faintly visible if you know where to look. And here's the part that's honestly the creepiest to me. Housekeeping swears that after the room was closed, they went back in later just to refresh it and found things out of place. Decor shifted, items not where they'd left them. Nothing major, just enough to make you stop and think, wait, who's been in here? Except no one should have been. So, yeah, people at work started speculating immediately. Some think it was a ritual. Some think it was some kind of protection thing. Others think it was just panic after a medical emergency and people doing whatever they believed would help. But that blindfold, the blood, the covered mirror, the oil crosses, I don't know. All I know is I've worked in hotels long enough to see weird guests, messy rooms, even medical situations. But that room felt different. And every time I pass it now, I catch myself glancing at the door like it might remember. So, this happened to me and a friend of mine about a year ago, and I swear, it's been looping in my head lately, like my brain is trying to make sense of it. For a little background, my friend Mara and I both had this feeling that her house wasn't exactly empty. Not like someone's hiding in the closet empty. More like there was something else there. The kind of presence you can't point to, but it makes your shoulders tense up the second you step inside. She'd moved in not too long after the previous owner's son died in a car accident. Mara didn't know how old he was, just that it had been a few years before her family moved in. And ever since she'd lived there were little things that kept happening. Random stuff would slide off counters like it had been nudged. She'd hear footsteps upstairs when she was home alone. Her family would mention weird, cold pockets in the hallway, like walking through an invisible draft that shouldn't exist. And one time, this is the part that always makes my stomach flip. She told me she woke up in the middle of the night feeling something cold press against her forearm, like a hand that had been outside in winter. Not rough, not squeezing, just there. She shot upright and nobody was in the room. I hated being in that house. I never said it like that to her because I didn't want to freak her out even more. But the place always felt like it was watching, like the rooms held their breath when you walked through them. Anyway, one night it was just me and Mara in her bedroom. No parents home, no siblings bothering us. Just that quiet, heavy stillness the house always had. We were trying to ignore it by doing what we always did, playing music and singing over it like we were on stage. The music was coming from my phone. Important detail, I wasn't even using the app. My phone was just there, screen lit sometimes when I checked messages, but I wasn't scrolling playlists or touching anything. We were in the middle of a song, like fully in it, not even close to ending. And then, the music changed. Not a gentle fade out, not the next track. It cut, mid-verse, like someone yanked the cord out and plugged in something else. Suddenly this song starts playing, something totally different from what we'd been listening to, like a hard left turn. And I remember Mara going, "Wait, what is this?" And I'm already reaching for my phone because my first thought is I accidentally hit something. But here's the thing. It wasn't just any random song. It was Dollhouse. And if it had been anything else, I honestly might have laughed it off. Glitch, autoplay, weird shuffle, whatever. But the lyrics, what it's about, hit like a punch because it matched Mara's home life in this eerie, too perfect way. Mara had been dealing with some really personal stuff with her family, the kind of thing she barely talked about out loud. And at the time, I was pretty much the only person she'd told. Like, the only one. No one else at school knew. Her extended family didn't know the real details, and I definitely hadn't typed it anywhere or set it near her phone. It was just something she'd trusted me with. So when that song started playing in that room, out of nowhere, both of us just froze. We looked at each other, and it wasn't even dramatic at first. It was just that quiet, "Are you hearing this too?" kind of fear. The kind that doesn't need words because your face already says it. I remember the air in her room feeling colder after that. Or maybe that was just us. But it genuinely felt like something had leaned in close, like it wanted us to notice. We didn't run out of the house or anything. We just sat there for a while, unsettled, trying to act normal and failing. And after that night, we didn't really bring it up much. It came up once or twice over the year, usually as a quick, nervous, "Remember that time?" And then we'd drop it. But lately I've been thinking about it again, and I keep coming back to the same question. Was it just a glitch that happened to be horrifyingly perfect? Or was something in that house trying to say, "I know"? So, this all really kicked off the week my grandmother, Nana Claire, ended up in the ER, and it got scary fast. She pulled through, thank God, but after that, the house just didn't feel the same to me. I actually wrote down a rough timeline because it started to feel like one of those things where, if you don't keep track, you start wondering if you're imagining it. And I swear, I'm not the kind of person who usually jumps to something weird is happening. But this was weird. September. Nana Claire got taken to the hospital for a health issue, and she left her place exactly the way it was, like she just stepped out for a minute. A couple days later, I went over to grab her some clean clothes and, honestly, just to use the bathroom in peace. Her bedroom is right across the hall from the bathroom, and while I'm in there, I hear her call my name, clear as day. "Eli?" And my stomach dropped immediately because Nana Claire wasn't even home. She was still in the hospital. I froze. I didn't answer. I just finished up as fast as I could, washed my hands, and when I stepped out, I glanced toward her bedroom without even meaning to, and I saw someone sitting on the edge of her bed. It looked like her. Not like a shadow or a shape either. Like her. I didn't stand there to investigate. I didn't say a word. I just walked out like my body knew before my brain could argue, and I got in my car and left. I went back to where I'd been staying and tried to tell myself it was stress, grief, exhaustion, anything that made more sense than what it felt like. But that was only the beginning, because for the rest of September, and then through October and November and into December, it kept happening. I'd hear Nana Claire call for me from another room, like she needed help or wanted something, and I'd go right to her and say, "Yeah, what do you need?" And she'd look at me all confused and swear she never called my name, not even once. At first I laughed it off, like, "Oh, okay, Sure, but when it kept happening, it stopped being funny. It started feeling like the house was testing my attention, like it was learning my reflexes. And then, right near the end of the year, it escalated. December 28th. I was sleeping on the couch in the living room at Nana Claire's place because I'd been staying there more often. And sometime around 3 in the morning, I hear my Uncle Marcus yell for me. Not a casual shout, like he needed me right then. "Eli!" It came from the basement, where his workshop is. And I sat straight up because it was so specific and so real that my body reacted before my brain could catch up. But here's the thing. Uncle Marcus hadn't been there in days. He hadn't been in the house since the holiday dinner earlier that week. Still, I lay there listening, waiting for a second call, my heart thumping so loud it felt like the room was breathing with it. I didn't go down there. I couldn't. Something about it felt wrong. Like if I answered, I'd be stepping into something I didn't understand. December 30th. This one wasn't just me. Nana Claire called me into her room, looking genuinely unsettled, and asked, "Is Marcus here?" I told her no, he wasn't. Not tonight. And she said she had just heard him in my cousin Jaden's room, yelling like he was arguing through a headset, like he was on a game chat, getting loud over the mic. And Jaden, my cousin, heard it too. But Jaden's TV wasn't even on. His console was off. No audio, no party chat, no YouTube video playing in the background. Nothing. Just the sound of my uncle's voice, coming from a room where he wasn't. So at that point, it stopped feeling like a one-person experience. It wasn't just my stress, or my imagination, or half-asleep confusion. Other people were hearing it, because now, whenever I hear my name being called in that house, I don't just automatically get up and respond like I used to. I've started answering from wherever I am, just a quiet, careful, "Yeah?" Like I'm trying to keep distance between me and whatever is calling. Like, I want to acknowledge it without inviting it closer. And there is another thing that's happened in that house. Something even harder to explain. But I'm not going to pile it on right now. This is already a lot. I don't know what to make of it. All I know is this. It's confusing, and it feels personal, and it's starting to make me question what I'm hearing, until someone else hears it too. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So, I've told a few friends and some family about this, and I swear, everyone kind of smiles and nods like they're listening, but it always feels like they don't really believe me. And I get it. It sounds weird, but it happened, and it's stayed with me ever since. I'm going to keep the exact place vague, because it was a church summer camp, Methodist, I think, and honestly, it meant a lot to me. It was one of those places you carry in your heart, you know? So many goofy laughs, late-night talks, dumb camp games, just the best kind of memories. That's part of why this throws me off so much. It didn't fit the feeling of the place at all. This was back in the summer of 2008, when I was starting high school. Me and my younger brother Eli went every year for a week. It was way up north in this tiny little town. There was a lake there that always felt calm, like glass in the mornings. Just a few lake houses scattered around, and then the camp tucked into the trees. Quiet, peaceful. The kind of quiet that usually feels safe. We'd already been a couple summers before, back when I was in middle school, and nothing had ever been even remotely off. So when we got there that first day, it was totally normal. We met our cabin group, did the usual awkward introductions, picked bunks, tried to remember everybody's names, all of that. But then, that night happened. I remember waking up in the cabin for no obvious reason. Everything was still. Everyone else was asleep. All I could hear was the low whir of those cheap box fans they always had going, and the little ticking of a clock on the shelf. It was humid in there, that sticky kind of summer heat where the air feels thick. I must have drifted back off, because the next thing I remember, I woke up again. This time I was facing the wall, and I don't know why, but something in me was instantly alert, like my body knew I wasn't alone before my brain caught up. I turned over, and there it was. A silhouette, just the dark shape of a person standing near the end of my bunk. It looked like a man, and I could see what looked like a brimmed hat. Not like a baseball cap, more like an old-fashioned hat shape. The thing that messed with me the most is how solid it looked. It wasn't just dark. It was darker than the darkness around it, like it was cut out of the room itself. And it was tall, about as tall as the top bunk. I remember freezing so hard I felt like I couldn't even breathe right. Like if I moved too much, it would know. I stared for maybe a second, maybe two, and then I just panicked. I turned back toward the wall as fast as I could and pulled my shoulders in like I could make myself smaller. I didn't look again. I couldn't. I just laid there, wide awake, trying to convince myself I was imagining it, while my heart was basically trying to escape my chest. The rest of that week, I felt off, like I wasn't fully in my own skin. I got anxious for no reason, and I kept getting these chills even when it wasn't cold. There was this constant sense that something was wrong, and I couldn't name it. And it wasn't just at night. It was like I couldn't settle the whole time. That feeling followed me home too. Not for months or anything, more like several days, maybe a week, but it was intense. I'd be in my room at home and still feel uneasy, like my body hadn't stopped bracing for something. The thing is, nothing like that ever happened again. Eli and I kept going back every summer until I was a junior, when they stopped doing the teen week. And every other year was normal, fun, safe, exactly how it was supposed to be. But I still think about that night. I still don't know what I saw. I don't know if it was a nightmare I was half awake in, or sleep paralysis, or my eyes playing tricks in the dark, or something else entirely. I just know it felt real in a way I can't fully explain. Like my body recognized it as real before I even had time to process it. And I think that's why it bugs me so much when people brush it off. Because I'm not telling it to be dramatic. I'm telling it because it happened. And I honestly just want someone to take me seriously for once and say, "Okay, that's creepy, and I believe you."